Chapter 563. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 565. Jiang Bailan's shocking appearance. Back at the Vermilion Bird Platoon, Qin Nan had mentioned that he would need a huge amount of primary stones. Zhou Bihua had personally gone out to plunder primeval stones everywhere. Who would have thought that in just a few days, he would actually bring in such a huge sum of money? 5,800,000, that's 5,800,000, Qin Nan mumbled to himself for a while, before his eyes flickered with excitement. Previously, the 900,000 primary stones had allowed the Divine Battle Spirit to rank up to the 7th grade D rank. Could the Divine Battle Spirit rank up to the 9th grade D rank, or even the 10th grade D rank with 5,800,000 primary stones this time? Phew, the trial of the Dragon Abyss Mystical Ground is about to begin. There's not enough time. I'll rank up my martial spirit after the trial. Qin Nan let out a sigh and made up his mind. Following this, he executed the Sleeping Buddha method and fell into a deep sleep, allowing the law-defying primordial spirit in his body to comprehend the force of the martial highness realm. Time gradually passed. The next day, the sun rose into the sky and emitted a golden glow, illuminating the palace with a brilliant glow. Whoosh! Qin Nan's eyes sprang open as a rumbling sound could be heard coming out from his body. The law-defying primordial spirit in my body has reached its limit. Just one more step and I'll be able to achieve the force of the martial highness realm. It seems like I'll need to acquire the Dragon Abyss fruits from the Dragon Abyss Mystical Ground. Qin Nan's eyes flickered with a hint of battle intent. After a day of recuperation, his mind had reached its peak. Duan Qing, let's head to the Mystical Ground Palace. The third prince had changed his appearance. He was wearing a blue robe with his hair tied up. He carried a long sword on his back, giving him the appearance of a carefree swordsman. Qin Nan glimpsed at him. Unlike before, he could sense a hint of battle intent from the third prince's body. Marshmallow, Qin Nan nodded, and the two of them went together. In the royal palace, there was a special entrance to the Dragon Abyss Mystical Ground, which was known as the Mystical Ground Hall. Before entering the Mystical Ground, the princes and geniuses would gather at the Mystical Ground Hall. After the gathering, they would hold a ceremony to officially open the secret realm. That being said, the sky-scorching emperor would not be present during the ceremony of the Dragon Abyss Mystical Ground. The sky-scorching emperor would only personally attend major events such as the heaven-worshipping ceremony or the crown prince's appointment. By the time Qin Nan and Qin Nan arrived at the Hall of Secrets, more than 30 princes and princesses had already gathered inside. Greetings, third brother, big brother Duan Qing. Brother Duan Qing, we meet again. I haven't forgotten big brother Duan Qing's grace at the Talent Gathering Hall. As soon as the two of them arrived, all the princes and princesses gathered around them and greeted them. Especially Qin Nan, the princes and princesses glanced at him with a hint of flattery. As for Qin Nan, their gazes toward him were filled with a hint of ambiguity. If Duan Qing was previously someone that the princes and princesses did not dare to provoke, he had now become a delicious piece of cake. The main reason for this was Zhou Bihua's attitude. For Duan Qing's sake, Zhou Bihua had beaten a prince on the street, and even severely injured 2 authorities of the martial monarch realm. It was obvious that Duan Qing was extremely important in Zhou Bihua's heart. The princes and princesses even speculated that the rank of Duan Qing's martial spirit was on par with Di Fengyun's. Otherwise, why would Zhou Bihua be so supportive of him? As such, their attitude toward Duan Qing had changed. Qin Nan's expression remained calm. He could easily guess the thoughts of the princes and princesses, thus he was not too bothered by it. Previously, none of them had tried to recruit him due to Di Fengyun. Only the third prince was bold enough to recruit him despite the risk. Third brother is so lucky. The princes and princesses glanced at the third prince with envy after seeing Qin Nan's attitude. The first prince is here. The ninth prince is here. At that instant 2 roars could be heard, as the figures of the first prince and the ninth prince appeared before the crowd. Beside the first prince stood the Death Emperor, who was wearing a black robe. As for the ninth prince, Long Hu and a bulky genius of the Black Tortoise platoon stood beside him. Merely today the 2 princes' complexions were extremely ugly. This was especially true for the first prince. His expression was even gloomier than before. Qin Nan and the rest of the crowd were aware that something was not right. As everyone knew, each prince was allowed to bring 2 geniuses to the Dragon Abyss mystical ground. The reason why the third prince had only brought Qin Nan was because the other one, Yin Cheng, had been sent flying by Qin Nan, thus there was no need for another one. Why did the first prince only have the Death Emperor by his side? Everyone knew that the first prince had received the support of the Trading Alliance. Duanqing, it seems like the situation has changed. If I'm not mistaken, it's most likely because of second brother. The third prince frowned and transmitted his voice to Qin Nan. The second prince, huh? Qin Nan's eyes flickered coldly. He was certain that the assassination attempt had been planned by the second prince and Su Ao. Now that the Dragon Abyss mystical ground is about to take place, the second prince will surely show himself. I'll be able to find out what tricks he has up his sleeves. Qin Nan mumbled to himself as he calmed his thoughts and glanced at the Death Emperor standing beside the first prince. Since the second prince was not here, he was curious to know how the Death Emperor had recovered from the serious injury he had suffered. Cultivator Jiang, it's been a few days since we last met, but it feels like 3 years have passed. I can't forget the wine contest at the Hall of Talent. I do hope that I'll be able to spar more with someone like you and learn more about martial arts. Qin Nan approached the Death Emperor and said. The surrounding princes and princesses could feel their lips twitching. They did not expect this Duanqing to be such an evil person. The first prince standing beside Cultivator Jiang wore a twisted expression. His initially gloomy expression was replaced by a ferocious one. What had happened today, and the fact that he had been defeated twice in a row by Duanqing, and now he was being mocked. Wasn't that too much? Qin Nan, the person under the black robe, slowly raised his head, revealing his attractive face as he transmitted his voice to Qin Nan. Qin Nan's figure shuddered violently. What was going on? Did the Death Emperor discover his true identity? Qin Nan, I'm not the Death Emperor. I'm Jiang Bailan. Jiang Bailan said in a gentle voice. Jiang Bailan? Qin Nan's eyes widened slightly. The conflict between him and Jiang Bailan had been going on for a long time. Why was she still alive after being possessed by the Death Emperor? Besides, how did Jiang Bailan know that he was Qin Nan? The Death Emperor has taken over my body, as he was severely injured by the Sacred Lord Blue Dragon, thus he was unable to destroy my soul. Besides, his soul fell into a deep sleep after you inflicted a serious injury on him, allowing me to take control of the body. Jiang Bailan transmitted her voice. Now is not the right time. I'll tell you the details after we enter the Dragon Abyss mystical ground. Qin Nan's eyes turned cold. He was about to speak when a yell could be heard from outside. Chapter 564. Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second Divided by Xiao? Shua Web, providing you with interesting novels to read. C_T. Chapter 566. The Second Prince, Song Lithe Mystical Ground Hall fell into a dead silence, as the princes and princesses glanced toward the entrance. $, cotton candy Xiao Shua. That was fast. The first prince's slightly twisted expression was replaced by a ferocious murderous intent, which caught the attention of the crowd. Qin Nan gave Jiang Bailan a thoughtful look, before he withdrew the icy look in his eyes and turned around. The second prince was the most mysterious one among the princes. He had the support of the White Tiger platoon, but had suddenly left White Tiger City when the Dragon Abyss mystical ground was accessible. Stomp, stomp, stomp. A series of crisp footsteps could be heard, as three figures appeared before the crowd. The person leading the group had short silver hair, and was wearing a snow-white fur coat, which encapsulated his figure. Among his facial features, his eyes were icy, attracting the attention of the crowd. This person was none other than the second prince, Song Li. 7th grade D-ranked martial spirit, undefeatable martial dominator realm cultivation. Qin Nan peeked through the figure with his left eye of the divine god of battle, causing his face to be filled with astonishment. This second prince was a super genius himself. Apart from the second prince, there were two other young men beside him. The young man on the left was wearing a silver-white armor. He had a bulky figure, a rough face, and a pair of ferocious eyes. Together with his messy white hair, he looked like a human-shaped white tiger. This person was none other than the genius of the 99th batch of the White Tiger platoon, Yao Ji. This Yao Ji is just like the rumors, possessing a 7th grade D-ranked martial spirit and a cultivation of the first layer martial highness realm. Furthermore, there is a mysterious force in his body, which seems to be the aura of the Sky-Howl White Tiger. Qin Nan wore a stern look. Both Yao Ji and the second prince Song Li were super geniuses and extremely powerful. Cotton candy. Furthermore, there was a third person. Qin Nan took a deep breath and looked at the third person. He was stunned by what he saw. The third person was fat all over and held a chicken leg in his left arm. His eyes were narrowed into slits, making him look extremely wretched. Ordinary people naturally wouldn't be able to see through the mystery, but Qin Nan saw through him. This guy. Isn't he Sima Kong? Previously, the copper mirror had displayed the whereabouts of Princess Miao Miao, Tang Qinshan, Gong Yang, and the others. Qin Nan remembered that Sima Kong had become an inner disciple of the Trading Alliance, whose status was on par with Lu Jian's. Why is he here now? And beside the second prince? Could it be Qin Nan suddenly woke up? He finally understood why the first prince looked at the second prince with murderous eyes. Everyone knew that the first prince had received the support of the Trading Alliance in the beginning. Now that Sima Kong had appeared beside the second prince, it was highly possible that the Trading Alliance had given up on the first prince and began to support the second prince. Everyone, it's been a while. The second prince came to a stop and scanned his surroundings like the owner of the mystical ground hall, before he waved his hand and said, "When the Dragon Abyss mystical ground is activated, do your best and try to achieve a good result." The words were spoken in a firm tone. If the first prince's previous actions were to be described as wanting to be the leader of all the princes, then the second prince's words and actions were already treating himself as the leader of all the princes. The confidence and the courage made it seem like he had already become the crown prince. Second brother, that's quite impressive. The first prince withheld the anger in his heart and clenched his fists, before he spoke in a sinister tone. However, before he could finish, the second prince spoke while ignoring the first prince. He pointed at the two people beside him and said, "Allow me to introduce. This is Yao Ji, the 99th batch platoon leader of the White Tiger platoon. As for the other one, his name is Pang Qiu, one of the inner disciples of the Trading Alliance." What? An inner disciple of the Trading Alliance? The princes were not surprised by Yao Ji's appearance, but they were startled by Pang Qiu's appearance. The princes and princesses soon realized what was going on, causing their gazes toward the second prince to change. Being supported by the White Tiger platoon and the Trading Alliance, wasn't the second prince's influence a little too impressive? "So you're Duan Qin?" The second prince ignored the crowd's reaction and glanced at Qin Nan in a condescending manner. He even ignored the third prince who was standing beside Qin Nan. "That's quite impressive of the second prince." Qin Nan let out a hollow laugh. There was a hint in his words. "Of course, but Duan Qin, you've impressed me. I didn't expect to be able to keep you here even with that trick. The second prince admitted it without hesitation before he continued, You better not let me down. Saying this, the second prince flung his sleeves and placed his hands behind him. He walked toward the center of the hall and sat on the main seat, resulting in a magnificent aura. The princes and princesses were startled. The faces of the first prince and the ninth prince darkened at the same time. The royal family placed great emphasis on etiquette. Did the second prince really treat himself as the crown prince? Duan Qing. At that instant, a loud roar could be heard all of a sudden, shocking the princes and princesses. The one uttering the roar was none other than Yao Ji. Yao Ji glanced at Qin Nan and let out a ferocious grin. The fact that you're able to become Zhou Bihua's successor proves that you're quite capable. That being said, you've made our platoon leader very unhappy. Therefore, don't blame me if I were to cripple you at the Dragon Abyss mystical ground. As soon as he finished speaking, Yao Ji twisted his neck to the left and right respectively, resulting in cracking sounds of bones being twisted. 2 strong gusts of wind burst out from his neck. The expressions of the surrounding princes all changed slightly. Such a powerful aura was produced with such a tiny movement. This Yao Ji was extremely powerful. Besides, what caused the princes and princesses to be even more shocked was that this Yao Ji was trying to cripple Duan Qing with his words. The unpleasant looks on the faces of the first prince and the ninth prince calmed down slightly. Since the second prince and the third prince were both extremely powerful, if they were to compete with one another, they would still have a chance to survive. Piss off! Qin Nan snapped without raising his eyelid. Trying to cripple him right away? Don't blame me for not giving you any face. The surrounding princes were stunned. This Duan Qing was so ferocious. Not only did he not back off facing Yao Ji's provocation, his aura was even stronger than Yao Ji's. You're asking me to piss off? Yao Ji's eyes widened as a terrifying ferocious aura was emitted from his body. Due to his martial spirit, his temper was extremely hot-tempered. Even if someone were to give him an extra glance, he would feel uncomfortable and attack them. Besides, Duan Qing had asked him to piss off in front of the crowd. You think you can ask me to piss off? Since you're so shameless, I'll cripple you right now. Yao Ji uttered a roar as he spread his arms wide, resulting in countless white glows that sprang in Qin Nan's direction like a ferocious tiger. The attack was none other than the ancient martial art of the White Tiger platoon, White Tiger descending from the heavenly mountain. Vermilion bird striking the heavens. Qin Nan's eyes turned cold. Since this Yao Ji had decided to attack, why would he back off? Following a clank, he drew out the ancient saber in his hand, which summoned an ancient vermilion bird that flapped its wings and uttered a roar. Bang! A boundless force exploded. Chapter 565. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 567. My stomach hurts. The phoenix and the white tiger collided, resulting in a powerful aura. Advertisement. For more information, visit www. Qin Nan and Yao Ji's figures collided with one another like a red ray and the other like a white ray. In the blink of an eye, they had both lashed out hundreds of punches, resulting in a series of explosions, resulting in a terrifying battle. However, Qin Nan was an undefeatable martial dominator, and with his left eye of the divine god of battle, he was able to see through the situation, thus his strength was outstanding. Even Yao Ji, with a cultivation of the first layer martial highness realm, was knocked 3 steps backward in just a short period of time. You're able to knock me back 3 steps? Yao Ji's eyes widened. Instead of showing any sign of fear, his face was filled with excitement as he said, If that's the case, I'll feel even better after tearing you apart. Roar. A beastly roar echoed in the sky as Yao Ji's figure began to expand. His body was covered in white fur. His eyes turned into the eyes of a tiger as he slashed forward with his sharp claws, leaving a trail of marks in the air. White tiger tearing the heavens. Whoosh! However, Qin Nan's eyes emitted a thunderous glow as he was able to see through everything. As soon as the attack landed, his figure appeared above Yao Ji without any sign, with an expressionless face. Yao Ji's face was filled with astonishment. He was a first-layer martial highness, thus his attack was extremely powerful. Not only had Qin Nan dodged it, he had even appeared above him? Before he could react, Qin Nan stomped downward with his left foot. Demon cleansing art. A giant bell was summoned under his foot, encapsulating Yao Ji's figure. Dang! The bell was struck with a tremendous force, resulting in a series of explosions taking place on Yao Ji's body. He spat out a mouthful of blood and almost dropped to his knees. Cotton candy. I told you to piss off. Qin Nan snapped as his figure arrived before Yao Ji with a flicker and lashed out with his right foot. Boom! The force of the flesh of the martial highness realm was completely unleashed, which struck Yao Ji's chest like a giant hammer, sending him flying and slamming into the wall of the palace, resulting in a huge pit. This series of actions only took 3 breaths. The princes were astounded after witnessing Duan Qing's extraordinary strength once again. The second prince narrowed his eyes. He had long heard of Duan Qing's strength, but he did not expect that the great Yao Ji would be suppressed by Qin Nan to the point that he could not even fight back. Duan Qing, how dare you hurt me? I'll kill you right now. Yao Ji struggled to get out. His hair was disheveled and his eyes were bloodshot. It was as if he had turned into a real beast. Roar! 7 golden rays flickered behind him, as a ferocious tiger with a pair of wings floated in the air. Its eyes were crimson, emitting a terrifying glow. This was Yao Ji's martial soul, the double-winged blood-eyed tiger. Among the tigers, it was born with a violent nature. One with the tiger. Yao Ji uttered a roar as the double-winged blood-eyed tiger entered his body, causing his figure to grow rapidly. White fur grew rapidly on his body, while his eyes turned crimson red. You still want to come? Qin Nan's eyes flickered coldly. If that was the case, he would gladly oblige. Buzz! All of a sudden, the saber in Qin Nan's hand shuddered violently while emitting a flicker, emitting an icy aura that swept the entire hall. In the blink of an eye, the 2 geniuses were about to engage in a duel. The princes and princesses subconsciously held their breaths and stared with their eyes open wide, not willing to miss out on any details. Bang! Yao Ji's figure dashed toward Qin Nan, but in the nick of time, he uttered a roar. Pang Qiu! Attack together! Let's kill this guy! Pang Qiu chuckled as if he had already expected this. With a stomp, a terrifying force burst out from his enormous figure, charging in Qin Nan's direction like a giant mountain. A pincer attack from both sides, one from both sides. The scene took place so quickly that the crowd could not react in time. By the time the princes realized what was going on, their expressions had become a little unsightly. Ambush! These 2 guys were trying to ambush Qin Nan. Shameless! The third prince became enraged. However, at that instant, the pincer attack had already taken place. The outcome of the duel would be determined in a single breath's time, thus he was unable to stop it in time. Shameless! The second prince on the leading seat wore a disdainful grin. The winner was the king, while the loser was the bandit. So what if it was an ambush? So what if it was the Wuji clan? Even though it was impossible to kill Duan Qing, it would not be a problem to severely injure him. With Duan Qing being severely injured, who among the princes would stand a chance against him? Duan Qing, let's see how you're going to escape this time. The grin on Yao Ji's face grew thicker as he stared at Duan Qing, who was just inches away from him. He had received the order from the platoon leader to ambush Duan Qing at the palace. He knew that he was no match against Duan Qing, thus he had already told Pang Qiu that the 2 of them would team up and ambush Duan Qing at the crucial moment. Once he managed to severely injure Qin Nan, he would be rewarded greatly by the platoon leader. In the blink of an eye, not only did Qin Nan not attack, he wore a calm expression. "It's me," Qin Nan transmitted his voice to Pang Qiu. Pang Qiu was Sima Kong. Sima Kong was initially disdainful toward the second prince, but he could not disobey the orders of the alliance. Thus he had no choice but to team up with Yao Ji to ambush Duan Qing and severely injure him. However, when Qin Nan's voice echoed in his mind, Sima Kong was dumbfounded. K me. Duan Qing was Qin Nan? As the atmosphere in the mystical ground palace froze, a cry of agony could be heard all of a sudden, startling the crowd. Following this, Sima Kong, who was only a zhang away from Qin Nan, fell to the ground all of a sudden. He held his stomach with both hands and rolled back and forth, while uttering a series of painful cries. "Ah! Pain, pain, pain! My stomach hurts! Someone poisoned me! Someone poisoned my chicken leg!" Sima Kong's bulky figure rolled on the ground with an extraordinary aura, sweeping the dust away. At that instant, the crowd was dumbfounded, including the second prince. Poison? Why was this guy poisoned at such a crucial moment? The grin on Yao Ji's face froze instantly. If the two of them were to ambush Duan Qing, they might be able to inflict serious injuries on him, but now, he was the only one left. "Trying to ambush me?" Qin Nan's lips curled upward like a demon's grin as he suddenly raised his left arm. Bang! Yao Ji carried the might of the white tiger and slammed into the left arm. He felt as if he had slammed into an ancient divine mountain that was thousands of feet long. It was like an ant slamming into a giant. The huge rebound force suddenly surged, shaking him so much that he felt dizzy. Regardless of how strong the attack was, it was unable to penetrate the left arm of the divine god of battle. At that instant, Qin Nan suddenly raised his right arm and clenched it into a fist, before throwing it at Yao Ji's face without mercy. Bang! Chapter 566. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second Divided by Little? Shua.net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 568. The map implicates the Imperial exterminator. The place fell silent. No one dared to make a sound. Advertisement. -79. Meanwhile, a strange sight took place in the mystical ground hall. Yao Ji, who was shamelessly trying to ambush the crowd, was knocked into the ground with serious injuries. On the other side, Sima Kong did not seem to realize that he had tricked his teammate. His face was pale, and his hands were clutching his stomach. He was still rolling on the ground. His speed was getting faster and faster, and his movements were getting more and more exaggerated. It was as if he had been poisoned. At that instant, the 9th prince, Song Yu, and the other princes subconsciously glanced at Long Tian. The platoon leader of the 99th batch of the Black Tortoise platoon had been defeated during the wine contest, claiming that he was still poisoned. And now, Pang Qiu was poisoned too. Cough cough. Long Hu let out a cough. He could easily tell that Pang Qiu was Sima Kong. He could not help but curse in his heart, this son of a bitch. Why did he have to pretend to be poisoned? Even Qin Nan could not help but twitch his lips. These two guys were even more pretentious than the previous one. Nice. The third prince broke the silence all of a sudden and burst out laughing while clapping his hands. Haha, second brother, this Yao Ji is indeed extraordinary. He's still alive after receiving Duan Qing's attack. His cultivation is impressive, very impressive. Indeed, Yao Ji's cultivation is extraordinary. If it were any other genius, wouldn't they die on the spot after receiving Duan Qing's attack? As expected of the platoon leader of the 99th batch of the White Tiger platoon, the surrounding princes and princesses came back to their senses. Some of them didn't say anything, but the first prince, the 9th prince, and a few other princes who weren't in a good mood cooperated perfectly. Their voices were sincere, as if they were praising him from the bottom of their hearts. Love go little say, the second prince regained his senses. His confident expression had turned ashen as though he had just eaten a mouthful of filth. Were these guys complimenting him? They were mocking him. However, he could not find any way to refute them. The winner takes it all, he was the loser. Second prince, I think fellow Taoist Pang Chio has been poisoned. If he isn't careful, he might die. I happen to have an antidote here that can help fellow cultivator Pang Chio. Qin Nan flicked his finger and shot a primary stone into Sima Kong's mouth at lightning speed. At this time, he had to save the situation. He couldn't let Sima Kong continue to roll around. Boom! Sima Kong's acting had reached its peak, as various kinds of auras burst out from his body, causing his face to flicker between a dark and green glow, before it gradually turned red. The painful expression on his face disappeared too. Thank you for your help, fellow Taoist Duan Qing. Sima Kong quickly cupped his hands toward Qin Nan, his face full of excitement. It's no big deal. Qin Nan waved his hand casually. The surrounding princes were dumbfounded again. These two fellows were King good at acting. Pang Chio was an inner disciple of the trading alliance. Why would he be poisoned all of a sudden, and at such a crucial moment? Besides, did he happen to have the antidote too? It was obvious that Pang Chio didn't want to help. The second prince was aware of this, causing his expression to darken. What was the trading alliance trying to do? What was Pang Chio trying to do? Did they not want to cooperate with him anymore? However, even if he was confused, he could not blame Pang Chio, as he had no evidence. Following this, Yao Ji was saved by the second prince. However, due to his serious injuries, he could only glare at Qin Nan and Pang Chio before he went to the side to treat his injuries. Love go little saith Ku. After the incident, the second prince's aura dropped significantly, while the third prince's reputation improved further. Many princes surrounded him, as if they were trying to get closer to him. On the other hand, the first prince and the ninth prince lowered their heads and fell into deep thought. As for Qin Nan, Sima Kong, and Longhu, although they were standing on different sides, they began to communicate with one another with their divine sense. Sima Kong, you idiot, why are you pretending to be poisoned? Longhu burst out cursing. Damn it, what do you want then? Should I pretend to be dead instead of being poisoned? Sima Kong snapped back without mercy. I'm not happy about it. Your trading alliance has a lot of beauties, give me a few of them, or else you'll be dead. Humph, bring it on, with your skinny arms and legs, I can take on 3 of you at once. Qin Nan snapped after hearing their bickering. Let's get down to business. I forgot to mention, the guy beside the first prince is the Death Emperor. However, the Death Emperor's soul has fallen into a deep sleep, thus Jiang Bailan is in charge of controlling his flesh. Although Qin Nan was doubtful about the authenticity of Jiang Bailan's words, if the Death Emperor were here, he would surely tell the world about it. As for why Jiang Bailan did not tell the world, he would only know after entering the Dragon Abyss mystical ground. Death Emperor? Jiang Bailan? Sima Kong and Longhu shuddered and subconsciously glanced at the black-robed person beside the first prince. The black-robed person raised her head and gave them a charming smile, as if she was aware of something. It's really that bitch. On the other hand, Sima Kong caused Longhu to clench his teeth. He was not fond of Jiang Bailan at all. Qin Nan, I'm afraid there's something important I need to tell you. Sima Kong straightened his tone. Qin Nan frowned. Initially, the trading alliance was supporting the first prince, but we decided to support the second prince after he found a map a few days ago. Sima Kong said. Qin Nan immediately came to a realization after hearing this. A few days ago, the second prince had left White Tiger City all of a sudden. It was most likely that he had gone to retrieve the map. This map is related to the chaotic Crimson Blood Ocean. It's related to some kind of herb, but I have no idea what kind of herb it is. Sima Kong hesitated for a moment before he continued. However, if even our alliance leader is here because of a mere map, it's most likely something extraordinary. As soon as Sima Kong spoke, Qin Nan's expression changed. The disordered blood ocean. Wasn't that where Tang Qingshan and the others were at? The map in the second prince's hand was related to that place? What's the situation at the disordered blood ocean? Tell me in detail. Qin Nan snapped. The eyes of Sima Kong and Long Hu flickered with astonishment, as they did not expect Qin Nan to have such a great reaction. Despite his doubts, Sima Kong did not ask any further as he said, "In the eastern continent of the Upper District, there are various forbidden areas of various sizes. These forbidden areas were left behind after the deaths of some experts, while some were formed by the heavens and earth. There are many kinds of forbidden areas. The disordered blood ocean is one of the top forbidden areas. Even a martial sacred realm cultivator would be in great danger if they were to enter it before it's activated. It is activated once every 2 years, and there's only a month left until it's activated. According to my investigation, there seems to be some powerful succession in the disordered blood ocean that has yet to be discovered. Every time the disordered blood ocean is activated, the geniuses of the 4 great factions would take the initiative to train themselves." The thoughts in Qin Nan's mind became clearer after hearing the words. According to the Copper Mirror, Tang Qingshan and the others were training themselves in the disordered blood ocean in order to rank up to the martial sacred realm. Although he had no idea how they had managed to enter the place, when the disordered blood ocean was activated in a month's time, the geniuses of the 4 great factions would most likely discover the whereabouts of Tang Qingshan and the others. Once they were discovered, Tang Qingshan and the others would be targeted by Progenitor Wendao and the rest of the authorities. Sima Kong said in a serious tone, "According to the agreement between the Second Prince and the Trading Alliance, after winning the trial of the Dragon Abyss Mystical Ground, he would hand over the map to the Trading Alliance. Qin Nan, this map is extremely important. I'll inform you of its location in the trial of the Dragon Abyss Mystical Ground, and you must snatch it from the Second Prince's hands." "Sure." Qin Nan's eyes flickered. There was only a month left until the disordered blood ocean was activated. When the time came, he would not be able to stop the disciples of the 4 great factions from entering the place. However, he could not allow the map to fall into the hands of the Trading Alliance. Otherwise, if the Trading Alliance were to enter the disordered blood ocean in advance, the location of Tang Qingshan and the others would most likely be exposed. If that were to happen, Progenitor Wendao and the rest of the authorities would hunt them down. It was necessary to avoid such a situation. The map. I must get my hands on it. Chapter 567. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? Here's a fascinating novel for you to read. C_T. Chapter 569. Waiting for the Second Miracle. Time gradually passed. It was noon now. Access, whoosh whoosh whoosh. A few piercing sounds could be heard as warriors wearing golden armor entered the mystical ground palace. There were a total of 18 of them, each with a cultivation of the first layer Martial Highness realm. "They're here." The eyes of the princes glistened. Qin Nan withdrew his thoughts. These golden-armored warriors were the royal guards of the royal family, who only obeyed the orders of the sky-scorching emperor. They were here to activate the Dragon Abyss Mystical Ground. The leader of the golden-armored warriors said with an expressionless face, "Princes, the Dragon Abyss Mystical Ground is about to be activated. The Mystical Ground will be open for a total of 10 days. Within these 10 days, the prince who has acquired the most Dragon Abyss Chi will be the winner. If someone manages to acquire the Dragon Abyss fruits, the number of Dragon Abyss fruits will determine the winner. After hearing this, Qin Nan came to a realization. In the past, the Dragon Abyss tree would not appear in the Dragon Abyss mystical ground, thus it was impossible to acquire the Dragon Abyss fruit. As such, the winner could only compete with the Dragon Abyss Chi. That being said, if the winner were able to acquire the Dragon Abyss fruits, the Dragon Abyss Chi would be useless. Now, give out the badges. The golden-armored warrior waved his hand, causing golden badges to land in the hands of the crowd. These badges contained a mystical aura, and were the only way to enter the Dragon Abyss mystical ground. Remember, you are not allowed to kill anyone in the Dragon Abyss mystical ground. Otherwise, you will be punished by the Ministry of Justice of the Sky-Scorching Ancient Kingdom. Now, the mystical ground will be activated. The voice raised the tone of the last sentence. It was as if the hearts and minds of the 18 golden-armored warriors were connected. They reached out their hands at the same time, from which different seals floated. The 18 seals began to vibrate and emitted a mystical glow at the center of their palms. Reading in full, whoosh. It was as if the space in the palace was being torn apart by a giant hand, causing a gap to appear. At the end of the gap was not endless darkness, but a mysterious white glow, as if entering the gap would bring one to another world. Go! When the princes saw this, they exchanged glances with the geniuses beside them and stepped into it. Let's go too. Qin Nan and the third prince looked at each other and took a large step forward. However, at this moment, a shout suddenly rang out. Wait! The person who shouted was actually the second prince, Song Li. Qin Nan and the third prince stopped in their tracks. They frowned and turned their heads to look. What did the second prince want to do at this time? The other princes in the palaces came to a stop too. Their eyes were filled with confusion. Victory or defeat in the secret realm hall is nothing. Duan Qing, when we arrive at the Dragon Abyss mystical ground, you better surrender. Otherwise, you won't be able to bear the consequences. The second prince's eyes flickered coldly as the aura of an undefeatable martial monarch surged out. The reason why he said this was because he was extremely displeased with his failure at the Hall of Mystical Grounds. However, before he could finish, Qin Nan and the third prince stepped into the rift at the same time. A soft voice drifted in the air. Oh! The second prince was startled. The other princes were stunned too. Did he just say "oh" when facing the second prince's threat? Wasn't it obvious that he didn't put the second prince in his eyes? Duan Qing. The second prince's eyes were engulfed in flames of fury. A mere 99th batch genius of the Vermilion Bird platoon dared to look down on him? Let's go. The second prince withheld his anger and led Yao Ji and Sima Kong into the rift. The other princes did not stay any longer and entered the rift too. The entire mystical ground hall soon fell silent, leaving only the 18 golden-armored warriors. The golden-armored warriors uttered a roar, causing the rift to slowly close. That Duan Qing, the golden-armored warriors exchanged glances with one another. They could see the astonishment in each other's eyes. As the royal guards, they were well aware of the secrets of the mystical ground. They also knew who had a higher chance of winning the trial. However, this Duan Qing was able to remain calm facing the second prince. His courage was nothing to be scoffed at. Not long after, the news regarding the opening of the mystical ground was spread among the factions in the palace. I wonder who will come first in the trial? I believe the second prince has the highest chance of winning, as he has the support of the Trading Alliance and the White Tiger platoon. A while ago, the platoon leader of the White Tiger platoon, Di Fengyun, was infuriated. I'm afraid he is planning to deal with Duan Qing soon. Such a pity for the first prince, countless voices could be heard in every corner of the palace. Meanwhile, at the White Tiger platoon of White Tiger City. In the hall, a guard knelt down on one knee and reported everything that had happened in the mystical ground hall. In the end, the guard withdrew himself, leaving the hall in dead silence. Yao Ji isn't Duan Qing's match? Di Fengyun's eyes blazed with killing intent. But so what? I've already set up a trap. Duan Qing is dead for sure. Oh Zhou Bihua, you're trying to make Duan Qing your successor, right? I'll destroy him with my own hands. The words were uttered with a tremendous murderous aura. Well said. That's the way to go. Eliminate Duan Qing first, and Zhou Bihua will be eliminated in no time. By then, the primordial spirit of the vermilion bird and the primordial spirit of the black tortoise will not be able to escape. At that instant, an imperious voice could be heard from behind Di Fengyun, accompanied by a terrifying murderous aura. Di Fengyun seemed to be influenced by the voice, causing the murderous intent in his eyes to grow thicker. At that instant, if anyone were to be present, they would see a giant beast standing in the darkness behind Di Fengyun. The beast's eyes were like blood, while its mouth was slightly opened, as if it were going to devour the heavens and earth. The beast was none other than one of the top 3 experts of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom, the Skyhowl White Tiger. Meanwhile, at the Vermilion Bird platoon leader, Elder Wang opened his mouth with a worried look. According to the information they had gathered, it was highly possible that Di Fengyun had gone all out, thus placing Duan Qing in great danger. Don't worry. Zhou Bihua calmly spoke before he could finish his sentence. Don't worry? Platoon leader, it's not that I'm looking down on Duan Qing, but Di Fengyun is already involved, not to mention that the trading alliance is supporting the second prince. Although we don't have any concrete information, it's highly possible that Di Fengyun and the trading alliance have teamed up. Elder Wang felt like someone had stepped on his tail after hearing this. However, before he could finish his sentence, he was interrupted once again. Zhou Bihua suddenly asked, Elder Wang, do you know why I've accepted him as my successor? Elder Wang was slightly startled, as he had no idea why Zhou Bihua would ask this, but he still replied, Isn't it because of the vermilion bird primordial spirit? That's only one of the reasons. Zhou Bihua wore a thoughtful look as if he was recalling something. A few hundred years ago, an old man, an extremely powerful old man, told me that a few hundred years later, a person would create miracles. Duan Qing has already achieved the first miracle. At this point, Zhou Bihua did not say anything else. His eyes were burning with a strange light. The first miracle had already happened. Chapter 568. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? Shua Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 570. Meeting beside the Lake Whoosh. Qin Nan and the third prince landed on the ground, leaving a trail of dust behind them. Advertisement. For more information, visit www.m. Qin Nan's left eye flickered as he scanned his surroundings. The sky above had a strange blue color. As for the ground, there was no color at all. It was similar to the color of the Heavenly Barrier mountain range. However, Qin Nan discovered something strange. There were many beasts around them, which consisted of snakes, lizards, serpents, etc., with a hint of dragon qi in their bodies. At that instant, a strong repelling force could be felt coming from the sky, as if it were trying to expel Qin Nan's body from the heavens and earth. Qin Nan's expression changed instantly. The repelling force was extremely powerful, and there was no way he could resist it. Duan Qing, consume the stream of dragon abyss qi inside the badge. The third prince blurted out after seeing this. Qin Nan swiftly took out the golden badge. As he expected, inside the badge was a stream of mysterious qi with the shape of a dragon, which vibrated vigorously. It was the dragon abyss qi. Qin Nan absorbed the dragon abyss qi into his body, causing the repelling force between the heavens and earth to disappear. In the dragon abyss mystical ground, you have to consume a stream of dragon abyss qi every day, allowing you to possess the aura of a dragon. Otherwise, You will be expelled from the mystical ground and sent into the endless rift. The third prince explained. I see. Third prince, how do we acquire the dragon abyss chi? Qin Nan asked. Here, beasts that have reached the martial highness realm possess the dragon abyss chi inside their bodies. We can only acquire it by killing these beasts. The third prince said in a deep tone, Duan Qin, let's split up. You will hunt for the dragon abyss chi, and I'll sense the dragon abyss trees. Sensing the dragon abyss tree? Qin Nan was slightly startled, but after seeing the grin on the third prince's face, he immediately came to a realization. It was most likely that the third prince had already made preparations before the dragon abyss mystical ground was opened. Advertisement. No problem, use the token to contact me. The entire secret realm trial only lasted for 10 days. Every minute and every second was extremely precious. Qin Nan naturally would not waste his time. After nodding, his figure flashed toward a huge forest in the distance. At that instant, a voice suddenly echoed in Qin Nan's mind. It turned out to be Sima Kong. Qin Nan, I'm talking to you using a secret voice transmission technique. Damn it, that son of a bitch Song Li is suspicious of me. He left me aside as soon as we entered the dragon abyss mystical ground. Sima Kong's voice was extremely unyielding. Qin Nan nodded his head slightly. As the second prince, this Song Li was no fool. He would surely be cautious of Sima Kong after knowing his intention. So why don't you come over now? Qin Nan said in his heart. I won't be going. I'm from the Trading Alliance, so I can't stand on your side. Sima Kong chuckled and said, I'll hand that map over to you. Sooner or later, this son of a bitch will find trouble with you, and he'll take the initiative to deliver himself to you. I'll go dig for treasures then. Hearing Sima Kong's joyful tone, Qin Nan's mind darkened. This guy was really open-minded. Love go little Seiko. However, as Sima Kong had mentioned, it was highly possible that the second prince would show up on his own accord. Song Li, huh? Let's see what you've got. Qin Nan's eyes flickered coldly as he entered the woods. The woods were filled with countless beasts, each with an imperious aura, as if they were real dragons. Qin Nan's eyes flickered like torches as he scanned the woods, trying to locate the beasts. If the copper mirror is willing to lend a hand, it would save me a lot of effort, Qin Nan mumbled to himself. The mysterious woman in the copper mirror seemed to be somehow related to the beast. If she were to lend him a hand, it would definitely be useful. The third prince's cultivation is immeasurable. Even I can't see through it. I believe he would be able to handle the danger. Qin Nan pondered for a moment before he cleared his mind and continued to venture deeper into the woods. There was no presence of the martial highness realm in the outer area. After the period it took an incense to burn, Qin Nan came to a stop as a lake appeared before him. The lake covered an area with a circumference of 5 li. The water was murky and yellowish. Apart from that, a series of loud explosions could be heard from the lake, as 2 enormous figures appeared from it. 2 second-layer martial highness realm beasts. Qin Nan's eyes flickered as he slowly drew out his ancient saber. As he was about to make his move, he was startled all of a sudden. A few figures appeared on the other side of the lake, who were obviously the geniuses of the other princes. Qin Nan took a closer look with his left eye of the divine god of battle, and was stunned following a glimpse. They were the first prince, Jiang Bailan, the 9th prince, Long Hu, and another genius. Judging from the situation, the first prince and the 9th prince had discovered each other's presence, but there was no sign of tension, as they seemed to be discussing something instead. What a coincidence! Qin Nan mumbled to himself as his eyes flickered coldly. Although the second prince was his greatest enemy in the trial of the dragon abyss mystical ground, this Jiang Bailan was his enemy too. Both Jiang Bailan and the Death Emperor were his enemies. Killing her was equivalent to eliminating 2 of his greatest enemies. Meanwhile, on the other side of the lake, Ninth brother, we are currently in a disadvantageous position. We can't afford to attack them. The first prince hesitated for a moment before saying, "Why don't we form an alliance?" Song Yu was intrigued after hearing this. If they were to form an alliance, they might be able to defeat his second brother and third brother. However, it was hard to tell what a person was thinking. How were they going to split the loot after winning the duel? At that instant, Jiang Bailan's lips moved slightly as she said, "Duan Qing is on the other side of the lake." The moment he said those words, both the first prince and Song Yu jumped in fright. Duan Qing was currently the most terrifying existence in the entire mystical ground. Wouldn't it be the end for them if they were targeted by Duan Qing now? "I trust you two have been well since we last met." Qin Nan did not hesitate as his figure flew toward them from the other side of the lake with a kick. "Human, you dare to enter my territory. You're courting death." A loud roar could be heard all of a sudden. Bang! Two giant snakes with a length of over 10 zhang sprang into the sky from the lake. Their scales emitted a blinding blue glow as they opened their bloody mouths and bit in Qin Nan's direction from both sides. Slash! Qin Nan's figure did not slow down at all. Under the gazes of the first prince and the ninth prince, he drew out the ancient saber in his hand. A tremendous flame was emitted from the ancient saber, which transformed into the shape of a phoenix and slashed downward. This, the murderous intent in the eyes of the two giant snakes, was replaced by astonishment. Wasn't that the blood-winged vermilion bird? Before they could react, their figures were torn apart and turned into a rain of blood. Bang! Qin Nan's figure dashed out from the rain of blood and landed on the ground, causing cracks to appear on the ground. The first prince and the ninth prince were stunned, as they could only feel the blood on the ancient saber in Qin Nan's right hand, which was extremely eye-catching. Chapter 569. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? Here's a fascinating novel for you to read. C_T. Chapter 571. The two princes are dumbfounded. A strong sense of danger rose in the hearts of the first prince and the ninth prince. That was fast. Duan Qing was too powerful. Stumbling into him was equivalent to encountering a great danger. Ninth brother, why don't we team up and eliminate Duan Qing? The first prince collected his thoughts and transmitted his voice to the ninth prince. Eliminate Duan Qing? Song Yu was startled, but soon came to a realization. Since Duan Qing had discovered their presence, he would not let them go so easily. Instead of running away, it was better for them to team up and defeat Duan Qing. That way, the third prince would not pose a threat to them. Although Duan Qing was powerful, how could he stand a chance against the 5 of them? Sure. Song Yu instantly made up his mind. Since he wanted to become the crown prince, he had to eliminate the third prince and the second prince. As for the distribution of the loot, it was up to him. The two princes came to a consensus, causing their gazes toward Qin Nan to change instantly. If it could be said that they were deeply afraid of him before, then that fear had completely disappeared at that moment. The first prince, in particular, had been defeated multiple times by Qin Nan, who immediately spoke with a hollow laugh. "Duan Qing, don't think you're undefeatable. I'll give you a chance, either surrender or be defeated by us. You better be smart, or you won't even have the chance to regret your decision." "That's right, Duan Qing, you better be aware of the situation before you," Song Yu bellowed. Reading in full at that instant, the auras of the two princes became incredibly powerful, as if two lofty giants were staring down at an ant. Qin Nan immediately came to a realization after seeing this. It seemed like the two princes were planning to team up. "What if I don't surrender?" Qin Nan glanced at the two with a strange look, especially toward the ninth prince. Even now, this Song Yu still didn't know that Long Tian was Longhu, and that he had a life-and-death friendship with him. Not surrendering? Then don't blame us for showing no mercy. Fellow Daoist Jiang, let's attack together. Long Tian, let's cooperate with Big Brother and suppress Duan Qing. At that instant, the first prince and the ninth prince uttered roars as their figures sprang forward while unleashing the strength of the peak martial dominator realm. However, 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths, 4 breaths later, when the two figures were only a few zhang away from Qin Nan, they finally realized that something was not right, causing their figures to come to a stop. That's not right. Something's not right. The first prince and the ninth prince were shocked to find that only the two of them had made a move. Cultivator Jiang, Long Tian, and the other genius of the Black Tortoise platoon did not even move a single step. What was going on? Little brother Song Yu, don't blame Big Brother for not helping you. We are no match for Duan Qing. If we were to fight him, we would only be asking for trouble. Long Hu coughed and said in a rather embarrassed manner, let's not fight him. For the past few days, Song Yu had been served with great wine and beauties, thus Long Hu was slightly embarrassed to let him down. However, no matter what, there was no way he was going to fight Qin Nan. Considering the relationship between them, if he were to interfere and the princess knew about it, wouldn't she cripple him? As for the other genius of the Black Tortoise platoon beside Long Hu, he was a disciple of the 99th batch, thus it went without saying that he had to obey the orders of the platoon leader. The 9th prince was dumbfounded. Previously at the talent gathering hall, it was reasonable for them to admit defeat during the one-on-one duel, but why would they do the same now? This was not a one-on-one duel. How could a group of people lose to Duan Qing? Are you kidding me? First prince, I won't fight Duan Qing. At that instant Jiang Bailan spoke. The first prince was dumbfounded too. Why weren't they fighting Duan Qing? What exactly was going on? For a moment the two princes, who were originally full of vigor, were dumbfounded on the spot, like two statues. Qin Nan frowned. It was normal for Long Hu not to attack him, but why wasn't Jiang Bailan attacking him? Long Hu glanced at Qin Nan with a confused look. I have no idea what this Jiang Bailan is trying to do. Let's attack together and kill her right here. Qin Nan transmitted his voice to Long Hu. Jiang Bailan was extremely cunning and vicious, and the Death Emperor inside her body was a huge tumor too. They could not afford to let them live. However, at that instant Jiang Bailan spoke all of a sudden. First prince, ninth prince, why don't you listen to me? The current situation is very clear. The crown prince's position will surely be decided between the third prince and the second prince, thus you two have no chance at all. The third prince is a righteous person. My advice to you two is to support the third prince. Once the third prince ascends to the throne, your status will surely be second only to the third prince. With these words, the dumbfounded first prince and ninth prince became even more dumbfounded. And now, Cultivator Jiang was advising them to support the third prince? Among the princes, there were indeed some who were weak and hopeless, who would choose to side with the more powerful princes in the end. However, the two of them had been eyeing the crown prince's position for many years. Were they going to give it up just like that? Brother Song Yu, I feel that this fellow's words make sense. Although Long Hu was eager to teach Jiang Bailan a lesson, he could not help but give his advice. In his opinion, it was impossible for Song Yu to become the crown prince. At this moment, both the first prince and the ninth prince were a little confused. One was Cultivator Jiang, the other was Long Tian, the two geniuses that they had hired to assist them. Not only were they not willing to help them, they were even advising them to give up on the crown prince's position. These two. Why did it feel like they were spies that the third prince had planted around them? That's enough. Qin Nan uttered a roar all of a sudden, breaking the strange atmosphere. His eyes stared at Jiang Bailan as he spoke in a cold tone, there's no need to waste your time. It's time to settle the conflict between us. Jiang Bailan's eyes glistened as she said, sure. Do it. Bang! Qin Nan and Longhu were long prepared for this. Their auras were instantly unleashed as they arrived above Jiang Bailan's head. Jiang Bailan's eyes glistened as a tornado was summoned under her feet, which swept her figure toward the woods at lightning speed. Trying to run away? Qin Nan and Longhu both possessed outstanding flesh. With a stomp, their figures shuddered violently as they dashed forward. A chase took place instantly. The powerful auras of the three stirred a great storm in the woods. Only the first prince, the ninth prince, and the genius were left with a blank expression. Why was Long Tian and Duan Qing standing together? Why were they teaming up to chase after cultivator Jiang? What the F***K was going on? Why was their relationship so messed up? However, there was no way they would be able to find the answer to this question. Meanwhile, in the woods, within a few breaths' time, the trio had flown a few li away. Qin Nan and Longhu both executed powerful moves to attack Jiang Bailan, trying to stall her. However, Jiang Bailan's speed was extremely fast. Even with the interference, the two were unable to catch up to her. Eye of the starry sky. Qin Nan snapped as an illusionary eye appeared above Jiang Bailan's head, emitting countless rays of lightning. Wait! Jiang Bailan suddenly halted in her tracks. Her black robe was blown open by the wind, revealing her attractive face as she blurted out, "Qin Nan, I don't want to be your enemy. I want to work with you." Work with you? Chapter 570. Genius 1 second. Remember love divided by little? Chapter 572. The Lost Ancient Scroll. They did not expect Jiang Bailan to cooperate with them all of a sudden. Cooperate? A vicious woman like you still wants to cooperate with us? Longhu's eyes flickered with disdain. Qin Nan frowned. Jiang Bailan had already discovered his true identity at the mystical ground hall, but she had not told the four great factions. If she were to tell the others about it, the entire eastern continent would go crazy. If Progenitor Wendao and the rest of the authorities arrived, Qin Nan would be dead for sure. What was she planning to do now that she was willing to cooperate with them? Cut the crap. Qin Nan slashed the saber in his hand. The doubt in his eyes was replaced with coldness. He would never forget how Jiang Bailan had interrupted Princess Miao Miao's tribulation at the Demon King's Valley, causing Princess Miao Miao to almost lose her life. He would never forget the hatred he had for her. Only Jiang Bailan's blood would be able to calm the hatred. The cooperation is related to the Lost Herb Garden and Princess Miao Miao. Jiang Bailan blurted out after seeing their actions. Qin Nan and Longhu's movements stiffened. Jiang Bailan waved her hand, causing an ancient scroll to appear in her palm as she spoke in a calm tone. This ancient scroll is related to the secret of the Lost Herb Garden, which is extremely important to Princess Miao Miao. That being said, I'm not 100% confident that I'll be able to find it. Qin Nan, if you're willing to cooperate with me, I'll give you this ancient scroll. Longhu's eyes flickered with astonishment after seeing the ancient scroll, but he quickly concealed it and said in a mocking tone, "Jiang Bailan, are you trying to trick me? And he even lost the ancient scroll of the herb garden? Even someone at the level of the Emperor of Death wouldn't be able to participate in the secret of losing the herb garden." The Longhu ancestor beast possessed the bloodline of the heavenly dragon and thunderous tiger, granting him a unique succession of memories. Therefore, he was quite familiar with the missing herb garden. Full text reading. Shut up. Jiang Bailan's eyes became cold. It was unknown if it was because she had merged with the Death Emperor's soul, but her gaze was unusually sharp. Even Longhu could feel a chill running down his spine, causing him to shut his mouth subconsciously. Qin Nan, this ancient scroll has something to do with the Lost Herb Garden. I'm not lying to you. You decide for yourself. Jiang Bailan looked at Qin Nan and said seriously. There seemed to be some kind of light in her beautiful eyes. Qin Nan, don't believe her. It's not like you don't know her. Longhu said anxiously. However, before he could finish his sentence, Qin Nan, who had remained silent, slowly spoke. What do you want me to do? You. Longhu stared with his eyes open wide. Qin Nan ignored his reaction and stared at Jiang Bailan. Although her attractive appearance caused his heart to be filled with a murderous intent, he endured it. Maybe Longhu was right and Jiang Bailan was lying to him, but he had no other choice. Although Princess Miao Miao had never mentioned it, judging from the fact that she had turned into an ancient ginseng, whose cultivation was only at the martial ancestor realm, and had been hibernating for over 300 years, the princess must have encountered some kind of disaster. The Lost Herb Garden was the place where the princess had once lived. Since this ancient scroll was related to the Lost Herb Garden, it was highly possible that it was extremely important to Princess Miao Miao. If he could help the princess, even if the chance was only 1%, he would not hesitate to do it. Jiang Bailan's eyes flickered with a complicated expression as she calmly said, I want you to help me find the dragon abyss fruit. I need it. Besides, you are not allowed to harm me in the dragon abyss mystical ground. Sure. Qin Nan nodded his head and said, I need you to give me the scroll first. Jiang Bailan threw the scroll to Qin Nan without hesitation. Qin Nan received the scroll and scanned it with his left eye of the divine god of battle. The words and patterns on the scroll contained a mysterious yet powerful aura, which completely surpassed his understanding. It was most likely that the scroll was related to the Lost Herb Garden. Qin Nan took a deep breath and put the scroll into his storage bag. His gaze toward Jiang Bailan remained cold as he said, From now onward, you are not allowed to stay within 50 meters of me. Not a problem. In a flash, Jiang Bailan reappeared 50 meters away. She stood there gracefully like a beautiful flower in the forest. Longhu's eyes flickered with a hint of relief after seeing this. As a matter of fact, he already knew that Jiang Bailan was not lying to Qin Nan. The scroll was indeed related to the Lost Herb Garden, and would be useful to Princess Miao Miao. He had only spoken in such a manner to see Qin Nan's reaction. As a bystander, he had witnessed how much the Princess Miao Miao cared for Qin Nan. Sometimes, he even felt that Qin Nan was not worthy enough for the Princess Miao Miao, as the princess had been injured a few times because of Qin Nan. It seemed like the princess had a high status in Qin Nan's heart. Damn it, I'm so jealous of this kid. Longhu cursed in his heart. If he was the one who saved the ginseng, would the outcome be different? Buzz. At that instant, the golden badge on Qin Nan's waist began to vibrate vigorously. Qin Nan was startled after taking a glimpse with his divine sense. The badge contained the information from the third prince, who had located the location of the dragon abyss tree. Let's go. We'll find the dragon abyss tree soon. Qin Nan let out a roar and dashed forward without stopping. What? You found the dragon abyss tree so soon? Qin Nan, wait for me. Longhu's spirit was refreshed. He had been drooling over the dragon abyss fruit for a long time. Behind the two, Jiang Bailan's figure swiftly followed behind them. When the three figures disappeared from sight, a faint sigh could be heard coming from the woods. The voice in her heart actually resounded in the forest. Qin Nan was not too far away from the third prince. After the period it took an incense to burn, they arrived at the desert. The third prince sat with his legs crossed as his body emitted a golden glow. Golden runes were emitted from his body, which spread into the surroundings like serpents. If one were to glance down from above, the golden runes below the third prince had formed the outline of an eyeball. F***K Longhu's eyes flickered with astonishment as soon as he arrived. Isn't this the Golden Emperor heaven-gazing technique? How does this guy know this monarch art? In addition to Longhu, even Jiang Bailan's eyes were filled with astonishment. The monarch arts referred to the skills of Emperor Wu. For example, the the breath of death and the descent of the death god that the Death Emperor had used were also monarch art. The Golden Emperor heaven-gazing art was a monarch art. Once executed, the user would be able to determine the location of an object based on its aura. It was extremely terrifying. The third prince's eyes sprang open with an imperious look. He immediately saw Long Hu and Jiang Bailan and blurted out in astonishment, "Cultivator Long Tian? Cultivator Jiang?" He clearly remembered that these two were the geniuses serving the first prince and the ninth prince. "They are both my friends. They have come with me to assist you." Qin Nan casually came up with a lie. "Great!" The third prince was overjoyed. "With the help of these two geniuses, we will surely come first in the trial of the dragon abyss mystical ground." At this moment, the golden light under the third prince suddenly flashed. The yellow sand in all directions seemed to be hit by a gust of wind, and was directly blown away. It was a magnificent sight. The third prince immediately withdrew his thoughts and glanced into the sky. Not long after, his eyes flickered with sharpness. Chapter 571. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 573. Secretly exchanging blows, the golden glow under the third prince's figure disappeared, returning the place to calm. Full text -79 This dragon abyss tree is currently located at the center of the dragon abyss mystical ground, over 500 li away from us. The third prince wore a stern look as he said, "We should head there at once. My instinct tells me that second brother has some way to locate the dragon abyss mystical ground." Qin Nan and the others nodded their heads hearing this. The second prince, Song Li, was now fully supported by the White Tiger platoon and the Trading Alliance, thus his capabilities were not to be underestimated. If the third prince was able to locate the dragon abyss tree, he would be able to do so too. "Let's go." The third prince waved his hand, causing a giant boat to float in the air, which turned out to be an emperor weapon specifically for flying. The trio jumped onto the boat, causing it to soar into the sky, resulting in a strong gust of wind. Inside the woods, the first prince and the ninth prince subconsciously raised their heads after hearing the explosions in the sky, and saw Jiang Bailan, Long Hu, Duan Qing, and the third prince standing on top of the giant boat. Their minds, which had suffered a great blow previously, suffered a great blow once again, causing them to spit out mouthfuls of blood with a gloomy expression. Those two fellows were indeed spies that the third prince had sent to their side. Qin Nan and the others had completely forgotten about the two princes. The third prince had already established his dominance in the battle for the crown prince position, while the second prince had the support of the White Tiger platoon and the Trading Alliance. The first prince, the ninth prince, and the other princes and princesses were no match against them. In the end, the crown prince position would be decided between the third prince and the second prince. As for who would be the crown prince, it would depend on the final battle under the dragon abyss tree. The giant boat soared into the sky and traveled over 100 li in just a short while. During this period, Qin Nan took the opportunity to kill a few Martial Highness realm beasts to acquire some dragon abyss chi, so as to avoid being expelled by the heavens and earth. Almost there, the third prince stood at the front of the boat and glanced downward. A magnificent aura was emitted from his body, causing Qin Nan and the others to cast a sideways glance at him. That Golden Emperor's heavenly observation technique and this aura. The third prince was indeed not simple. However, right at this moment, a sudden change occurred. Voila! The space above the third prince and the others was shattered, as several giant phantoms dashed out from it. The phantoms wore hideous grins on their faces, as they let out eerie cackles, before lunging at the group of people with ferocious bites. The expressions of Qin Nan and the others changed slightly. This kind of attack naturally could not hurt them. However, they were now high up in the sky, and there was no trace of the enemy within a radius of dozens of miles. How did this attack come? How dare you be so arrogant with a mere curse? Jiang Bailan wore a calm expression. She waved her hand and unleashed an invisible force of death, shattering the phantoms into pieces. The curse is executed with a kind of artifact, which is known as the cursed plate. With the cursed plate, the phantoms are able to track down a person based on their scent. Even though its attack is relatively weak, it does have an outstanding tracking ability. Love go little say, W Chu, if I'm not mistaken, the second prince should be aware of our current location by now. Jiang Bailan said calmly. Impressive. Qin Nan's eyes flickered with astonishment. It seems like second brother is well prepared this time. However, not only did he track our location, he even harassed us. If we don't fight back, wouldn't he be looking down on us? The third prince let out a hollow laugh. Suddenly, he waved his hand and summoned 36 golden dragons. The leading one held a strand of hair in its mouth and soared into the sky. F***K-me. Longhu was startled as he blurted out, the Golden Monarch's dragon pursuit art is able to lock onto a person's location through their aura or something they are carrying. 36 golden dragons are able to launch attacks across 1,000 li, 10,000 li, you're right. The third prince let out a smile. Unfortunately, my art is not powerful enough to harm them. Tell me the truth, did you acquire the succession of the Golden Monarch? Longhu's eyes flickered with jealousy. 2 monarch arts, both inherited from the Golden Monarch. It was obvious that the third prince had acquired some sort of succession from the Golden Monarch. It was the succession of the Emperor Wu. Even a tiny part of it would be extremely beneficial to the third prince. Qin Nan nodded his head seeing this. Although the princes of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom had different backgrounds, it was undeniable that both the third prince and the second prince were dragons and phoenixes among men, who were supported by formidable factions. They had obtained fortunate encounters at a young age, allowing them to possess outstanding intelligence. Even in the entire eastern continent, they could easily be ranked among the geniuses. The group continued onward, and finally arrived at their destination 2 hours later. They could only see a huge lake in the distance, which covered an area with a circumference of at least 1,000 li. At the center of the lake stood a towering mountain with a height of over 10 li. From afar, the mountain looked like a giant sword stuck in the center of the lake, suppressing the surroundings. Although the lake and the mountain did not possess any cultivation, it was still quite intimidating when looking at it from afar. The dragon abyss tree is on the island. The third prince let out a low roar and unleashed his cultivation base to control the ship. It arced through the air and headed toward the mountain peak. Bang! At that instant, a wave over 10 meters tall rose from the lake, as 5 third-layer Martial Highness Realm fiery serpents sprang into the sky and opened their bloody mouths, firing flames in all directions in an attempt to bite the giant boat. You dare to attack with your master dragon here? Longhu cursed. His figure suddenly changed, revealing a ferocious and enormous dragon head. Roar. Following the roar, a tremendous dragon might swept the surroundings. The flood dragons that had soared into the sky were shocked. They did not expect that there would be a real dragon on the ship. They screamed and quickly retreated back into the lake. Every beast in the dragon abyss mystical ground possessed the aura and bloodline of the dragon, but they were not real dragons, thus they were terrified when facing Longhu. A heavenly dragon? The third prince's eyes flickered with astonishment, before he let out a relieved sigh. The lake was incredibly spacious, covering an area with a circumference of over 1,000 li. It was unknown how many Martial Highness Realm beasts were hiding in it. With the presence of the heavenly dragon, these Martial Highness Realm beasts would not dare to intrude. Who would have thought that Duan Qing's friend would be so powerful too? the third prince exclaimed, before he quickly shifted his attention to the giant boat and controlled it to fly toward the mountain. As the giant boat flew above the mountain, a rare occurrence took place. Bang! Above the mountain, a tremendous suppression descended all of a sudden, crushing down onto the giant vessel like a giant mountain, causing it to explode instantly. The figures of Qin Nan and the others were suppressed by the pressure too. Bang bang bang! Qin Nan and the others landed on the mountain, leaving huge pits on the ground. However, when they landed on the ground, the frightening oppressive might disappeared. Pooh 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 pooh, this mountain forbids flying. Why didn't they say anything about it? Longhu spat out some dust with a gloomy expression. Qin Nan leapt into the air and scanned the surroundings with the third prince and the others, but did not discover any beasts. Left eye of the divine god of battle. Qin Nan's left eye flickered thunderously as he glanced upward. Following a glimpse, his expression changed tremendously. This was the aura of the martial sacred realm. Chapter 572. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? Shua.net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 574. Third brother, you're finally here. No, this isn't the aura of the martial sacred realm, but a half-martial sacred realm cultivator. Quick update, refreshing website with few advertisements. I love this kind of website the most, please leave a good review. That's fast. Besides, the aura seems to be in a deep slumber, strange. Qin Nan took a closer look and deduced the situation from the aura's movement. It should be at the peak of the mountain. Qin Nan raised his head and glanced toward the peak of the mountain. The entire mountain was stuck in the middle of the lake like a giant sword. The mountain was only a few hundred meters tall, thus it lacked a magnificent aura compared to the mountains in the Heavenly Barrier mountain range. However, after taking a closer look, one would feel their hearts racing. This mountain is known as the Heartbroken Mountain, and the Dragon Abyss Tree is located at the peak. Flying is not allowed on the Heartbroken Mountain, thus we will have to climb the Heartbroken Cliff to reach the peak. The third prince wore a stern look as he spoke. According to the records, the Heartbroken Cliff is extremely dangerous, filled with heartbroken beasts. We should be careful. It's only a heartbroken beast, nothing to worry about. Longhu let out a sigh. He did not seem to be bothered at all. He had the lineage of the heavenly dragon and thunderous tiger, thus any low-ranked beast would be suppressed by his lineage. Qin Nan and the others glanced at him and ignored him, before they proceeded deeper into the place with a flicker. The entire Heartbroken Mountain was surprisingly quiet. Not a single beast could be seen, nor was there any herb. However, the more quiet it was, the more uneasy one would feel as they walked toward the foot of the mountain. We've arrived at the Heartbroken Cliff. The third prince halted in his tracks. They could only see a strange mountain wall before them. The mountain wall was straight, terrifyingly straight. It fell to the ground without any bends. Some kind of purple-colored trees grew on the mountain walls, and they were extremely dense. Let's go. The third prince was the first to bear the brunt of the attack. His figure flashed, and he stepped onto a purple tree and flew upward at high speed. Qin Nan and the others quickly followed after reading the whole thing. It's simple, Longhu twisted his lips. The wall was only 100 meters tall. He could reach it in a few breaths' time. However, at this moment, a whooshing sound could be heard. A yellowish beast around the size of an arm with spikes all over its body charged at Longhu. It opened its mouth and revealed its dense fangs aiming at Longhu's head. A mere demon emperor dares to ambush me? The dragon tiger god was enraged. He opened his mouth and roared, unleashing the might of the heavenly dragon. However, a surprising scene appeared. The little beast did not seem to be affected at all. Its speed did not decrease, and it continued to charge forward. This heartbreak beast is still a little strange. Long Hu was slightly startled, before he waved his hand and smashed the heartbroken beast into pieces with a tremendous force. His eyes were filled with disdain once again. But, so what, Long Hu? Hurry up and leave. Qin Nan's expression changed abruptly as he yelled. Long Hu was startled. He subconsciously turned his head around and saw heartbroken beasts coming out from all directions. They were so densely packed that they formed a long yellow curtain like a wave. Their numbers were shocking and terrifying. A demon emperor realm heartbreak beast was nothing, but when there were 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, or 100,000 heartbreak beasts gathered together, it was extremely terrifying. Besides, they were not allowed to fly. Fight! With a flicker, Qin Nan dashed to the front and unleashed a boundless flame to protect himself. He drew out the ancient saber Ira and unleashed a boundless saber intent into the heartbreak beasts like a general, trying to clear a path for himself. Even with Qin Nan's cultivation, he would still feel minuscule when he was surrounded by hundreds of thousands of heartbroken beasts. It was extremely dangerous. However, he was the strongest among them, thus he had to lead the way. Cover Duan Qing. The third prince uttered a roar as a boundless golden glow was emitted, which transformed into hundreds of golden swords surrounding Qin Nan, forming a sword formation to protect him from the heartbroken beasts that were trying to ambush him from all directions. Breath of Death. Jiang Bailan executed her strongest move without hesitation. Hundreds of heartbreak beasts were instantly killed by the Sai, but it did not affect the tide of heartbreak beasts at all. Long Hu collected his thoughts. He did not expect the heartbreak beasts to be this overwhelming. He uttered a roar and charged into the tide. A terrifying battle took place. Qin Nan and his crew unleashed their saber glows and martial arts like giant claws, tearing a path through the tide of heartbreak beasts. The group of 4 continued to advance forward. We're almost there. Qin Nan scanned his surroundings as his left eye emitted a glow, observing the attacking trajectories of the heartbreak beasts. His figure moved rapidly like a phantom, dodging the attacks like a web, before he leapt into the air. Slash! A loud roar was uttered like the furious roar of a deity. Qin Nan raised the ancient saber in his hand while accumulating the will of the vermilion bird heaven-striking art, the phoenix soul-consuming fire, the left eye of the divine god of battle, the sky thunder, the heart-calming demonic slash, and the demonic art of heart-calming slashing downward. Bang! The middle of the tide of heartbreak beasts was shattered, revealing a path leading to the peak of the mountain. Golden Emperor's art of soaring sky. The third prince uttered a roar as a brilliant golden glow was emitted from his back, which transformed into a pair of giant golden wings over 10 zhang long. He grabbed with his hand, grabbing Qin Nan and his crew with a golden glow. He then flapped his wings and sprang into the sky like a terrifying storm. The heartbreak beasts that were approaching from all directions were knocked flying, preventing them from regrouping. Bang! The third prince's wings dissipated as he landed on the ground and panted heavily. In addition to him, Qin Nan and his crew were breathing heavily too, as the battle had consumed a significant amount of their energy. Damn it, these heartbreak beasts are crazy. Long Hu's heart skipped a beat. Luckily, the heartbreak beasts did not make their way to the peak. Otherwise, he would have to flee for his life with his trump card. Qin Nan rolled his eyes at him. He was too lazy to waste his time talking to him as he glanced ahead. With a single glance, a look of shock appeared in his eyes. He could only see a small lake at the peak of the mountain. The water of the lake was icy blue in color, emitting a strong presence of qi, as if it were a heavenly pond. In the center of the lake stood a towering tree. The tree was thick and straight, and it was 50 feet long. Around the tree were petals of 7 colors, which wrapped around the tree in layers. Only the head of the tree could be seen. Puff, puff, puff. The tree was breathing heavily like a living person. Each time it breathed, the surface of the lake would produce waves, resulting in a suppression of the half-martial sacred realm, causing one's mind to shudder. This is the Dragon Abyss Tree. The third prince's eyes flickered passionately. The Dragon Abyss Tree was highly respected in the entire sky-scorching ancient kingdom. This was not only because the Dragon Abyss fruit had extraordinary effects after consuming it, but it was also a symbol of luck and fortune. It was also because of this that the prince who plucked the most Dragon Abyss fruits would win and obtain the recognition of the empire. The reason being that the more Dragon Abyss fruits a prince had, the prince would be acknowledged by the Dragon Abyss Tree. However, at that instant an icy voice could be heard all of a sudden. "Third brother, you're finally here. I have been waiting for you for a long time." Chapter 573. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second Divided by Little? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 575. The Monarch Drum, The Gathering of the Ministers. Meanwhile, in White Tiger City, as the trial of the Dragon Abyss mystical ground began to take place, the various factions in the palace fell silent. Everyone was waiting for the trial to come to an end in 10 days' time, so that they could see who would come first. However, a rare occurrence took place all of a sudden. Access to the full article, thump, thump, thump. A series of loud drum beats could be heard coming from deep within the palace. The sound of the drum reverberated in the air, but it did not dissipate. It was as if it had swooped down from the sky and rushed into every corner of the imperial palace. This drum beat. Could it be the monarch drum? Did someone just beat the monarch drum? At that instant, the people in the palace were astounded, as their faces were filled with astonishment. There was a drum in the palace which was known as the monarch drum. Once the monarch drum was beaten, every minister in the palace was required to gather at the emperor's audience hall, regardless of what they were doing. The monarch drum would be beaten whenever something serious happened. The last time the monarch drum was beaten, it was because the sky-scorching emperor was gathering the opinions of the ministers when he was planning to team up with the other 3 factions to hunt down Qin Nan. Why was the monarch drum being beaten this time? Could it be that something serious had happened? Let's go. Let's head to the emperor's audience hall at once. I wonder what the monarch drum is about. Quick! The entire palace was immersed in an uproar, as the ministers immediately headed to the emperor's audience hall. The emperor's audience hall was the only main hall in the palace. Apart from the heaven-worshipping feast, the crown prince's edict, or some important matter, the ministers would have to enter the emperor's audience hall for a meeting. In less than the period it took an incense to burn, the spacious emperor's audience hall was fully crowded. These people were the Minister of Justice, the Minister of Rights, the Minister of War, the Prime Minister, etc., who each held great authority in the sky-scorching ancient kingdom. However, at that moment those big shots were all frowning. The reason being, the sky-scorching emperor was not in the emperor's audience hall. If it wasn't the emperor, who was it that had beaten the monarch drum? Everyone. Just when everyone was puzzled, a vigorous and domineering voice resounded. Today, this battalion commander has suddenly sounded the emperor drum and summoned everyone. It's rather abrupt. I hope everyone can forgive me. Whoosh! Following the words, a figure appeared and stood below the dragon throne, standing above the ministers. It was none other than Di Fengyun. Everyone was stunned when they saw Di Fengyun, and the doubt in their eyes deepened. Why did Di Fengyun sound the emperor drum? Although they were confused, the entire throne room was silent. No one made a sound. They were all waiting for Di Fengyun to speak. Everyone knew that in the sky-scorching ancient kingdom, even though the ministers possessed great authority, their status was significantly weaker compared to the White Tiger platoon, the Vermilion Bird platoon, and the Black Tortoise platoon. The The reason being that these 3 platoons had been passed down for a few hundred years, and had nurtured many generations of genius disciples, resulting in a terrifying accumulation of resources. Not to mention that the person before him was the platoon leader of the White Tiger Platoon, Di Fengyun, an 8th grade D-ranked martial spirit, the top genius of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom, who was aiming to achieve the half-martial ancestor rank in the future. Di Fengyun did not speak. Instead, he looked out of the throne room. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A few piercing sounds could be heard as Elder Wang and Vice Platoon Leader Xiong of the Black Tortoise Platoon made their way to the front of the group. Di Fengyun? Elder Wang was startled when he saw Di Fengyun. The surrounding ministers were aware of something, but they remained silent. Where's Zhou Bihua? Di Fengyun stood high up in the air as if he was looking down at Elder Wang. As the platoon leader of the Vermilion Bird Platoon, shouldn't he be here for the meeting after the Emperor drum was sounded? Is he trying to break the rules? The words were uttered in a loud voice. No one had expected Di Fengyun to stir up trouble at this moment. This caused the hearts of the ministers to shudder slightly. Everyone was aware of the conflict between Di Fengyun and Zhou Bihua, but since Zhou Bihua's cultivation had reached the martial sacred realm, Di Fengyun had never bothered to trouble Zhou Bihua personally. Did this mean that Di Fengyun was confident in dealing with Zhou Bihua? I'm sorry, the platoon leader is not in the sky-scorching ancient kingdom. Elder Wang wore an icy expression. I see, but it's fine if he's not here. It's his loss that he won't be able to witness the battle in person. Di Fengyun's words were extremely disrespectful toward Zhou Bihua. However, before Elder Wang could reprimand him, Di Fengyun changed the topic and said in an excited tone, "Today, the Emperor drum is sounded and I've gathered all of you here to let you witness an exciting duel with your own eyes. A while ago, I happened to find a rare artifact, which allows me to observe the battle taking place at the Heartbroken Mountain in the Dragon Abyss mystical ground." Observing the battle taking place at the Heartbroken Mountain through a rare artifact? As soon as these words were spoken, all of the ministers present felt their spirits rise. As everyone knew, the Dragon Abyss tree was located at the Heartbroken Mountain. According to my estimation, the second prince and the third prince should have arrived at the Heartbroken Mountain with their respective groups. A cold grin appeared on Di Fengyun's face as he said, "The Dragon Abyss tree is about to be revealed. Today, I shall display this rare artifact so that everyone here can witness the outcome of the battle between the second prince and the third prince." All the ministers present were slightly taken aback when they heard this. They could sense 2 meanings from the words. Firstly, in the trial of the Dragon Abyss mystical ground, all the other princes, including the first prince and the 9th prince, had been eliminated, leaving only the second prince and the third prince, who were currently at the Heartbroken Cliff. As for the second meaning, it was even more intriguing. As everyone knew, the White Tiger Platoon and the Trading Alliance were supporting the second prince, Song Li. The Vermilion Bird Platoon was supporting the third prince. Now that Di Fengyun had sounded the Emperor's drum and summoned the ministers, did that mean that the second prince would definitely win the battle between the second prince and the third prince? Otherwise, what was the point of Di Fengyun's actions? What's going on? Elder Wang's eyes widened as a bad feeling arose in his heart. Why was Di Fengyun so confident in the second prince, to the point of summoning the ministers with the Emperor drum? The laws of the heavens and earth, the primordial godly orb, the true form of the Dragon Abyss, the eyes of the tiger. Di Fengyun uttered a roar as he spat out a round orb from his mouth, which had a few golden dragons swimming inside it. Next, he bent his finger and pointed at the bead. Rays of light instantly erupted from the bead and spread in all directions, slowly condensing into a huge light screen. Within the screen was a giant lake, and at its center stood a mountain with the shape of a giant sword. "This is the Heartbroken Mountain," one of the ministers blurted out. The Dragon Abyss mystical ground had been opened for generations, and they had all entered it before. Look! Di Fengyan yelled. The image on the screen shuddered violently, as if it had suddenly flown from the sky to the top of the mountain. The pond at the top of the mountain, the giant tree surrounded by colorful petals, the third prince, Qin Nan, the Death Emperor, Longhu, the second prince, and Yao Ji all appeared on the screen. It's really the second prince and the third prince. The ministers were astounded, as they did not expect this Di Fengyan to be able to show them the battle between the two princes on the Heartbroken Mountain. The bad feeling in Elder Wang's heart grew stronger seeing this. What was Di Fengyan planning to do? Chapter 574. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second? Here's a great novel for you to read. C_T. Chapter 576, The 7 Colored Flower Blooms, The Worship of the Beasts. Meanwhile, at the peak of the Broken Cliff Mountain in the Dragon Abyss mystical ground, Marshmallow accessed. The series of events that took place in the palace of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom did not cause any commotion. The crowd at the peak of the mountain had no idea that their actions were being watched by Di Fengyan, Elder Wang, Vice Platoon Leader Xiong, and the other ministers. The second prince wore a cold expression. He had used the curse plate to track down the third prince and his crew from a distance of a few hundred li, but to his surprise, the third prince was able to teleport across the rift and attack him, which almost injured him. This third brother of his had concealed his strength well. He had never revealed his strength before. Second prince, Qin Nan and his crew were startled. It went without saying that they did not expect the second prince to be here at the Broken Heart Cliff so early. Second brother, how impressive! You managed to find the Broken Heart Cliff when the Dragon Abyss mystical ground has just begun. The third prince soon collected his thoughts and glanced at Qin Nan before saying with a calm smile. Qin Nan immediately came to a realization. His eyes flickered with excitement. Currently, the second prince only had Yao Ji on his side, while they had Longhu and Jiang Bailan on their side. They could easily defeat the second prince in a battle. Hee, I'm no match against you. The second prince shrugged, as if he was aware of something. He let out an eerie grin toward Qin Nan and said, Duan Qing, are you planning to make your move now? My advice to you is not in a rush. Once the 7-colored flower of the Dragon Abyss tree blooms and I've collected the Dragon Abyss fruits, I'll give you a battle. A love go little say, W. Chunam? Qin Nan frowned. Was the second prince pretending to be so confident, or did he have some kind of trump card up his sleeve? I just can't stand people like you. Eat my fist. Disdain appeared on Longhu's face. He took a step forward and soared into the sky with a ferocious aura. Advertisement, however, a sudden change occurred. Whoosh! The water in the ice-blue pond began to boil. A few black figures appeared as if they had sensed something. They emitted a powerful aura that swept across the entire place. The aura was from the 5th layer Martial Highness realm. The third prince's expression changed, and he said, Don't do anything. Longhu felt chills running down his spine as the auras locked onto him. He couldn't take another step forward. The third prince took a deep breath and said, I've heard those seniors say that when the Dragon Abyss tree's 7-colored flowers bloom, it's not allowed to use force. Otherwise, the guardian demonic beasts in the pond will view you as an enemy and directly attack you, killing you. Fuck you. Longhu wore a sullen expression. It was quite frustrating to not be able to fly or fight at the Heartbroken Mountain. Third brother, you are so knowledgeable. You know quite a lot. The second prince's lips curled up into an evil smile. Qin Nan and the others ignored the guy's presence. Since they were not allowed to use force, they could only wait for now. There was no need to bother with this second prince's weird words. Third prince, what do you mean when the 7-colored flowers bloom? Qin Nan transmitted his voice to the third prince. Did you see that? The dragon abyss tree is encapsulated by the petals of the 7 colored flowers. When the 7 petals blossomed, the dragon abyss tree would bear the dragon abyss fruit. Only then will we be able to follow the instructions of the dragon abyss tree to harvest the dragon abyss fruit. The third prince explained to Qin Nan and the others. I see. Qin Nan glanced toward the center of the pond. The petals of the 7 colored flowers encapsulating the dragon abyss tree were slowly blooming, but at a relatively slow pace. It would take some time for them to fully bloom. Qin Nan glanced at the second prince and Yao Ji with the corner of his eyes. They were extremely relaxed, as if the victory was already within their grasp. Judging from the surface, the second prince and the others are no match for our combat power. Judging from the current situation, it's highly possible that the second prince and Yao Ji are hiding some powerful trump cards. Qin Nan's eyes flickered. At that instant, Jiang Bailan, who was standing a distance away, made a hand gesture toward Qin Nan. It was obvious that Jiang Bailan was aware of it too. Qin Nan ignored her and fell into deep thought. It's obvious that the second prince and Yao Ji have a clear idea of my strength. They must have prepared some trump cards to deal with me. My only trump card is the left arm of the divine god of battle, which is able to resist any terrifying attacks. Qin Nan analyzed. The duel was extremely important. Both the map that the trading alliance coveted and the dragon abyss fruits were extremely important to the second prince, thus he could not afford to lose them. I still have another trump card, which is the copper mirror. Without hesitation, Qin Nan transmitted his voice to the copper mirror. If he could gain the support of the copper mirror, he would have a great chance of winning the duel. That being said, it did not mean that Qin Nan's fearless will to battle against the heavens and earth had disappeared. If the second prince and his crew were to challenge him to a fair duel, Qin Nan would not be intimidated. Since they had decided to use their trump cards, he would do the same too. He was not a saint who was willing to take a beating passively. However, to Qin Nan's dismay, the copper mirror did not show any reaction at the crucial moment. I shall make full use of the left eye and left arm of the divine god of battle to fully utilize my strength. Qin Nan quickly adjusted his thoughts. His eyes emitted a sharp glow, as if a godly sword was about to be drawn out from its sheath. As the duel was approaching, the battle blood in his body became excited. Second prince. Don't you let me down. Time gradually passed. The two groups at the top of the mountain ignored each other and sat down with their legs crossed, either resting their minds or staring at the dragon abyss trees. After the period it took 3 incense sticks to burn, a rare occurrence took place. Crack, crack, crack. A series of slow cracking sounds could be heard. Qin Nan and the others were startled, who immediately raised their heads and glanced toward the center of the pond. The petals of the 7-colored flower encapsulating the dragon abyss tree blossomed, revealing the trunk of the dragon abyss tree that was perfectly straight and purple in color with a strong presence of Tao intent. Crack! The last petal dropped to the ground. At that instant, another rare occurrence took place. Bang! A terrifying aura burst out from the dragon abyss tree all of a sudden. The dragon abyss tree that was a few zhang tall began to grow rapidly. In just a short period of time, it had grown from 10 zhang to 20 zhang tall into a towering tree. Apart from that, countless branches and leaves spread out in all directions from the gigantic purple body. Buzz buzz buzz. A series of mysterious chants could be heard coming from the rift as golden rays descended from the sky onto the dragon abyss tree, which began to produce fruits on the tree. Bang! At that instant, the giant lake surrounding the mountain was filled with terrifying waves, as several Martial Highness realm beasts sprang into the sky and glanced in the direction of the dragon abyss tree. Roar, roar, roar! The beasts uttered deafening roars at the same time. The blossoming of the 7-colored flower, the worship of the beasts. Chapter 575. A genius remembers love in 1 second divided by little? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 577 Movement of the Wind and Cloud, Celestial Devouring Bug. Meanwhile, in the Emperor's audience hall of the White Tiger City. Full reading 79 on the water screen, colorful flowers bloomed, hundreds of beasts bowed, and the dragon abyss tree towered into the sky. The shocking rare phenomenon caused the hearts of the ministers in the hall to skip a beat. The fruits of the dragon abyss tree. It was the most crucial moment of the trial of the dragon abyss mystical ground. Whoever won the trial would be crowned the crown prince. I wonder who's going to win today. From the looks of it, the third prince has a higher chance of winning. I believe the second prince will surely win. The ministers discussed among themselves. On the surface, the third prince's team seemed to be stronger than the second prince's team. However, since Di Fengyun dared to summon the crowd with the emperor drum, it was likely that he was confident that the second prince would win the trial. Just to show the second prince's victory and the third prince's defeat? The thought flashed across Elder Wang's mind, causing him to clench his fists tightly. Dragon Abyss Mystical Ground, at the peak of the Heartbroken Mountain. The eyes of Qin Nan and the others were filled with astonishment after seeing this. They did not expect such a great disturbance to occur when the dragon abyss tree was awakened. A moment later, the beasts in the lake fell silent, with no more roars. Only the dragon abyss tree towered above the heavens and earth like an atavistic giant, suppressing the entire lake and the mystical ground. So that's the dragon abyss fruits? Qin Nan collected his thoughts and raised his head. He could see golden fruits growing on the giant dragon abyss tree. The fruits were the size of a palm, covered in countless runes, and contained a tremendous force within them. Full reading. There were a total of 99 dragon abyss fruit. I'm the second prince of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom, Song Li. Greetings, senior dragon abyss tree. I'm the third prince of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom. After seeing this, the second prince and the third prince stepped forward and brought their fists together in a respectful manner. The dragon abyss tree possessed a great status in the sky-scorching ancient kingdom. Even the crown princes were required to pay their respects to it. Whoosh! A sound similar to waves could be heard from the trunk of the dragon abyss tree. Following this, the bark shuddered violently, before a pair of giant eyes appeared, staring down at the crowd like a water tank. Boom! A terrifying half-saint aura descended without any warning, pressing down on him. Qin Nan and the others were startled, especially the second prince, the third prince, Long Hu, and the others, who subconsciously took a step back under the pressure. Only Qin Nan and Jiang Bailan were able to recover their calmness after a brief moment of astonishment. The last time it appeared was 10 years ago. Who would have thought that 10 years later, the fight for the position of crown prince has already begun? The voice of the dragon abyss tree echoed in the heavens and earth. Your father has already told me about it. There are 99 dragon abyss fruits here. Come and claim them with your own strength. Following this, several auras were fired from the giant dragon abyss tree. Each of the auras was at the first layer Martial Highness realm. There were a total of 990 auras. What are those? Qin Nan glanced at the auras with his left eye of the divine god of battle. He immediately discovered that the auras were giant insects. The insects were a meter long, purple in color and covered in fine hair. 2 sharp fangs could be seen at the corners of their mouths, which were entwined with some kind of talisman, tearing at the dragon abyss tree. The expressions on the faces of the third prince and the others also changed. What were these insects? These insects are called celestial devouring insects, my natural enemy. I can't harm them. Therefore, I need your help. The dragon abyss tree said, if you manage to kill 10 of them, you will be given a dragon abyss fruit. If you manage to kill more than 100 of them, I'll reward you handsomely. Qin Nan and the others immediately understood the meaning behind the words. Is there something special about these celestial devouring insects? Longhu asked in a soft voice. He no longer dared to act recklessly after learning his lesson. Be careful when the time comes. Qin Nan shook his head. He tried to peek at the celestial devouring insects' weaknesses with his left eye of the divine god of battle, but failed to discover anything, as if they had no weaknesses at all. It was most likely something extraordinary that the dragon abyss tree was helpless against. Let's begin, the dragon abyss tree said. Let's go. The third prince led the way. With a kick, his figure emitted a golden glow as he slashed at a celestial devouring insect. However, a shocking sight took place. After a loud clang, the celestial devouring insect's body lit up with a fiery flower, but it did not cause any actual damage. It was still gnawing at the dragon abyss tree. Such a strong defense. The eyes of Qin Nan and the others flickered with astonishment. They leapt into the air and landed on the dragon abyss tree, before unleashing their attacks to eliminate the celestial devouring insects. As the attacks landed, Qin Nan and the others came to a realization. The most terrifying thing about these celestial devouring insects was their outstanding defense. Even with Qin Nan's strongest slash, he could only leave a celestial devouring insect with a serious injury. He would need to use other moves to kill the celestial devouring insect. We can't keep going like this. Qin Nan glanced at Jiang Bailan. She had used the Sigh of Death to attack the celestial devouring insects, thus her speed of killing the celestial devouring insects was significantly faster than theirs. However, it was still a drop in the bucket compared to the 990 celestial devouring insect. It would take a person more than 20 hours to kill 10 celestial devouring insects. By the way, that Songli guy, since there are only 2 of them, their speed of killing the celestial devouring insects is nowhere as fast as ours. He must have prepared some kind of backup plan, right? Qin Nan turned his head toward the second prince as a sudden thought crossed his mind. Song Li and Yao Ji were busy killing the celestial devouring insects with their attack. They had only managed to kill a single celestial devouring insect while panting heavily. It was as if Song Li was aware of Qin Nan's gaze, causing him to come to a stop. His gaze toward Qin Nan was filled with disdain, as if he were implying that they would surely win the competition for the dragon abyss fruits. Qin Nan raised his eyebrows. Haha, I'm sorry, but I happen to have something here that might be useful against the celestial devouring insects. Song Li burst out laughing as he took out a jade jar. Inside the jade jar was a blue liquid. Qin Nan, the third prince, and the others frowned after seeing the jade jar. Did this Song Li really have a way to deal with the celestial devouring insects? Gulp. Song Li raised his head and directly swallowed the medicinal liquid in the jade bottle. Immediately, a dazzling blue light bloomed from his body, and a formless aura spread out fiercely. Even though Song Li's cultivation did not improve, he had an indescribable feeling after consuming the liquid. Kill! Song Li roared and unleashed a series of attacks that landed on the celestial devouring bug. Next, a shocking scene occurred. The celestial devouring bug, which had a terrifying defense, was actually torn apart by these ordinary attacks. Streams of blood flowed out from its flesh. In just the period it took an incense to burn, he had killed a celestial devouring insect. Chapter 576. Genius 1 second. Remember love divided by go divided by little? SageNet, providing you with interesting novels to read. C_T. Chapter 578. The Power of Chaos, the period it takes an incense to burn? Qin Nan and the others were startled seeing this. Love go little sake, W2 access. It would take them at least an hour to kill a celestial devouring insect, but Song Li only needed the period it took an incense to burn. Didn't that mean they were going to lose for sure? What kind of godly item was the liquid that Song Li had just consumed, to have such a miraculous effect. The Dragon Abyss Tree is currently at the half-martial sacred realm. When it was about to rank up to the martial sacred realm, the first tribulation of the heavens and earth was triggered. These celestial devouring insects were formed by the force of the tribulation. They looked like beasts without intelligence, and only had one thought, which was to devour the primary force inside the Dragon Abyss Tree's body. Jiang Bailan said in a serious tone, "The liquid that Song Li consumed was the Tao liquid, which is extremely precious. There are less than 3 jars of it in the headquarters of the Trading Alliance. After consuming the Tao liquid, one would possess the Tao force, which is perfect to suppress the celestial devouring insects." After hearing this, Qin Nan and the others immediately came to a realization. This second Prince Song Li was most likely aware of the existence of the celestial devouring insects, which was why he had taken the Tao liquid from the Trading Alliance. But now, what could they do? Were they going to watch Song Li kill the celestial devouring insects? Ha ha, Duan Qing, third brother, did you see that? I only need the period it takes an incense to burn to kill the celestial devouring insects. You'd better show me some tricks, otherwise I'll be disappointed. Song Li laughed complacently. He could still remember the humiliation of Yao Ji's defeat at the mystical ground hall. Now, he could finally avenge his humiliation. Qin Nan and the others ignored his mockery and proceeded to make their move. They attacked the celestial devouring insects with fire, ice, lightning, etc. in an attempt to find their weakness. However, their repeated attempts were met with failure after failure. These celestial devouring insects did not seem to have any weaknesses at all. Time passed bit by bit. After consuming the Tao liquid, Song Li's momentum skyrocketed as he unleashed one attack after another, killing one celestial devouring insect after another. 2 hours later, he finally killed 10 celestial devouring insects. Reward: 1 Dragon Abyss Fruit. The voice of the Dragon Abyss Tree was extremely calm. With a flicker, a golden fruit landed in Song Li's hand. Good. I got the first one. Song Li's spirit was greatly roused. He tossed the Dragon Abyss Fruit to Yao Ji and said, "This fruit is your reward." Upon saying this, Song Li paused for a moment before adding, "Either way, most of the Dragon Abyss fruits will belong to us." The second prince is wise. Holding the Dragon Abyss fruit, Yao Ji's face lit up with joy as he spoke on purpose. Longhu, who was standing a distance away, was infuriated after hearing their words as he snapped, "It's only a Dragon Abyss fruit, what are you being so smug about? If I could, I would beat you to death." Qin Nan and the others remained silent, but their expressions became even more stern. Although they were not used to Song Li's scornful attitude, judging from the current situation, they would most likely lose to the second prince if they could not find a way to get the Dragon Abyss fruit. There must be a way, there must be a way. I have to calm down, I have to calm down. Qin Nan took a deep breath. The closer it was to the situation, the more he had to calm down. As he calmed his thoughts, Qin Nan began to ponder. There must be a way to turn the tables around. According to Jiang Bailan, these celestial devouring insects are formed by the heavens and earth. They do not possess any intelligence, and specialize in devouring the primary force inside the Dragon Abyss Tree. Qin Nan frowned as he observed the celestial devouring insects with his left eye of the divine god of battle. Each of the celestial devouring insects was repeating the same action like a puppet, opening their mouths and tearing at the Dragon Abyss Tree's primary force. It seemed like these celestial devouring insects were only interested in the primary force. Wait! Qin Nan was startled all of a sudden. If the celestial devouring insects were only interested in the primary force of the Dragon Abyss Tree, would they be interested in the Chaos Chi? Previously at the Qinglong mountain range of the lower district, when Qin Nan was taking part in the grand competition of the 16 mountains, he had stumbled into a bunch of fiery winged birds and sky thunderous beasts. These beasts were extremely interested in the chaos chi, and would not hesitate to trade for it with precious artifacts. This was because, in their eyes, the primal chaos energy was the origin energy. If the celestial devouring insects are interested in the chaos chi, I can let them consume it, then I can manipulate the chaos chi to destroy it from the inside. The more Qin Nan thought about it, the brighter his eyes became. He had once manipulated the primal chaos chi to make more than a dozen magical treasures explode. If the celestial devouring insects consumed it, he could make them explode too. Let's try. Qin Nan spat out a stream of chaos chi, which landed beside a celestial devouring insect. The dragon abyss tree wore a doubtful expression as if it was aware of something. The giant eyes on the trunk lowered its head and stared at Qin Nan, causing its mind to shudder violently. Was that stream of chi the primary force? Meanwhile, in the Emperor's audience hall of the White Tiger City, all the ministers present were moved when they saw what was happening on the water screen. The period it took an incense to burn. The second prince only asked for the period it took an incense to burn. Impressive, so he had prepared the Tao liquid. It seems like the second prince has acquired the most dragon abyss fruits at the Dragon Abyss mystical ground. How impressive! The second prince is so cunning. All of the officials were full of admiration. Di Fengyun's lips curled upward upon seeing this. Elder Wang's expression darkened slightly. He did not expect the second prince to be so well prepared. However, at that instant, a rare occurrence took place. What's going on? One of the ministers blurted out in astonishment. The rest of the ministers subconsciously raised their heads and soon witnessed a strange sight. The remaining celestial devouring insects suddenly stopped eating the dragon abyss tree and dashed toward another direction in a frenzied manner. Di Fengyun frowned too. Why did this happen all of a sudden? Meanwhile, in the Dragon Abyss mystical ground at the peak of the Heartbroken Mountain on the Dragon Abyss tree, the second prince, Song Li, was immersed in hunting the celestial devouring insects. Each time he killed one, the passion in his heart would grow stronger. At this rate, I should be able to kill at least 700 of the 990 celestial devouring insects in a day's time. Even if Duan Qing and the others were to use their full strength, they would only be able to kill 200 at most. By then, most of the Dragon Abyss fruits would be mine. Song Li's spirits were lifted. Once I've acquired the Dragon Abyss fruits, O Duan Qing, it will be your end. Song Li's eyes flickered coldly as the thought crossed his mind. This Duan Qing had no idea that he was about to die, right? A rare occurrence took place all of a sudden. The celestial devouring insect under Song Li's feet turned around and dashed forward at a great speed, causing Song Li, who was about to attack, to be stunned. He subconsciously glanced in the direction of the celestial devouring insect, and was stunned following a glimpse. Chapter 577. Genius remembers love go 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 little in 1 second? SegNet, providing you with interesting novels to read. C_T. Chapter 579, a series of explosions. The 900 celestial devouring insects rapidly gathered around Qin Nan's feet, as if they were worshipping the Emperor of Beasts. The Love Go Little Say Cool Quick Update, refreshing website with few advertisements. I like this kind of website the most, please leave a good review. That was quick. In addition to the second prince, Song Li was dumbfounded. The third prince, Longhu, Jiang Bailan, and Yao Ji were dumbfounded too. Why were the celestial devouring insects not eating the dragon abyss tree, but gathering around Duan Qing instead? What were they doing? Duan Qing, what are you trying to do? We're killing the celestial devouring insects. What are you? Song Li collected his thoughts and snapped. However, before he could finish his sentence, he was interrupted. Shut up. Qin Nan did not even bother looking at him. after discovering that the Chaos Chi was effective against the celestial devouring insects, he immediately took out over 900 streams of Chaos Chi and spread them around his body. The celestial devouring insects did not let him down. They impatiently devoured the Chaos Chi. That's over 900 streams of Chaos Chi. Please don't let me down. Qin Nan clenched his teeth and closed his eyes to sense the Chaos Chi. Even though the celestial devouring insect had devoured all the Chaos Chi, Qin Nan could sense that the Chaos Chi had entered the celestial devouring insect's body, but it had yet to be refined by the celestial devouring insect. Explode. Qin Nan uttered a single word in an icy tone. He controlled 10 streams of Chaos Chi to explode inside the bodies of the celestial devouring insect. Bang! 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 At that instant, the 10 celestial devouring insects with outstanding defensive capabilities all exploded. Their crimson blood splattered in all directions. Quick update: refreshing website with few advertisements. I like this kind of website the most. Please leave a good review. Destroy. Reward: 1 Dragon Abyss Fruit. The astonishment in the eyes of the Dragon Abyss tree showed no sign of dissipating, but it was not in a rush to show it. Instead, it dropped a Dragon Abyss Fruit into Qin Nan's hand. The surrounding second prince, third prince, and the others stared with their eyes wide open after seeing this. All of a sudden, why did the celestial devouring bug explode? And 10 of them at that? What did Duan Qing do? Countless doubts and doubts appeared in his mind like the tide of the sea. Only Jiang Bailan, after recovering from her initial shock, quickly thought of something. Previously, at Jiangwang City, over 10 Emperor weapons had exploded at the ancient dragon auction, which was exactly the same as the explosion of the celestial devouring insect. He was the one who did it. Jiang Bailan murmured as a gentle smile appeared on her face. Qin Nan held the Dragon Abyss Fruit in his hand as his eyes flickered with joy. His plan had worked. Third Prince, hold on to it. Qin Nan threw the Dragon Abyss Fruit to the third prince. The third prince subconsciously received the Dragon Abyss Fruit, before he quickly collected his thoughts and rejected the offer. Duan Qing, you're the one who got it. I don't want it. Before he could finish, he was interrupted by Qin Nan. It's fine, the rest of the Dragon Abyss Fruits are all ours. The conversation felt so familiar. The third prince and Longhu were startled, before they immediately collected their thoughts. Wasn't that what the second prince had said? The second prince collected his thoughts and snapped furiously after seeing the scene before him. Duan Qing, what did you do? Why would the celestial devouring insects explode for no reason? It's only the beginning. Qin Nan's lips curled upward. Seeing this, Song Li's heart shuddered as a bad feeling arose within him. Meanwhile, in the Emperor's audience hall of the White Tiger City, the expressions of the ministers froze after seeing the 10 celestial devouring insects exploding and the Dragon Abyss Tree rewarding them with a Dragon Abyss Fruit. They too had the same doubts as Song Li and the others. Why would the celestial devouring insects explode all of a sudden? Humph, trying to act cool. Di Fengyun's eyes flickered with disdain. Although he was clueless as to why the celestial devouring insects would explode, there was no way it was possible. Otherwise, why would the Dragon Abyss Tree reward them with a Dragon Abyss Fruit after killing 10 celestial devouring insects? Wouldn't that be a waste of money? In his opinion, Duan Qing was only bluffing. As for Elder Wang, his eyes flickered with a hint of hope as he recalled Zhou Bihua's words. Could Duan Qing turn the tables around? Look! One of the ministers suddenly yelled. The yell seemed to possess some sort of magic, causing Di Fengyun, Elder Wang, Vice Platoon Leader Xiong, and the rest of the ministers to focus their attention on the screen. On the screen, Qin Nan stood on the tree and uttered another word. Although the screen was silent, the crowd could clearly tell that Duan Qing had said explode. Explode? Did he want the celestial devouring insects to explode once again? A wisp of doubt flashed through the hearts of the crowd. Then, they saw a shocking scene. They could only see a powerful force bursting out from the celestial devouring insect's body, causing it to explode. This was far from the end. It was only the beginning. The first one, the second one, the third one, the fourth one, one after another, the celestial devouring insects detonated their bodies at the same time, as if they had all agreed to it. In the blink of an eye, more than 100 celestial devouring insects had exploded into pieces. 153. 153 celestial devouring insects, exploding in an instant. One of the ministers blurted out in a trembling voice. In other words, Duan Qing's trick had allowed him to acquire 15 dragon abyss fruits in just a single breath's time. 15 dragon abyss fruits, which was almost 1/6 of the total. The rest of the ministers collected their thoughts too. Their eyes were filled with astonishment. They clearly knew how powerful the celestial devouring insects were. How had Duan Qing done it? This was especially so for Di Fengyun. His expression immediately froze. Just a moment ago, he had been wearing a disdainful expression, but the next moment, the truth was like a slap to his face. On the screen, the scene had yet to come to an end. Qin Nan uttered another roar, and judging from the shape of his mouth, it was still the word explode. All the ministers were shocked when they saw this. Explode. Could it be? He could continue to explode the celestial devouring insects? All the ministers revealed looks of disbelief. How could it continue to explode? How was that possible? However, on this day, they witnessed an even more shocking sight. The remaining more than 800 celestial swallowing bugs exploded one after another, from top to bottom, from left to right, like a carnival of explosions. Even though there was no sound coming from the water curtain, the ministers could hear a series of explosions echoing in their ears. Bang, bang, bang. Continuous explosions. Continuous explosions. Shocking the heavens and earth. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths. Until the 5th breath, when the explosions ended, it was as if the entire place fell into a dead silence. The celestial devouring insects were all destroyed. Chapter 578. A genius will remember love in 1 second divided by little? SageNet, providing you with interesting novels to read. C_T. Chapter 580. A shocking turn of events. Dragon Abyss Mystical Ground, at the peak of the Heartbroken Mountain. A love go little say W. Chu. For more information, visit www. Meanwhile, the third prince, second prince, Longhu, and Yao Ji stared at the pool of blood before them in utter astonishment, leaving them speechless. The incredibly powerful celestial devouring insects with insane defense, which would take them the period it took an incense to burn even after consuming the Tao liquid, in just a few breaths' time. They were all wiped out. Even a 7th layer or 8th layer martial highness would not be able to achieve such a terrifying result. And yet, Duan Qing had done it. Not only did he do it, he did it without panting, his face was not flushed, and his heart was not beating rapidly, as if he had not used any energy at all. Kill all the remaining celestial devouring insects. What a great achievement! The remaining 97 dragon abyss fruits will be your reward. The dragon abyss tree uttered a roar, which no longer displayed its calm appearance. According to what I've said, there will be additional rewards for killing 100 celestial devouring insects. These 100 drops of dragon abyss leaves will be yours too. Bang! The remaining 97 dragon abyss fruits descended from the dragon abyss tree like raindrops and landed on Qin Nan's hand. Furthermore, 100 rays of light were fired into the sky. Each ray of light was a leaf. The leaves were extremely extraordinary, which were entirely purple in color and as tough as rocks. A mystical aura could be felt from the leaves. Although the dragon abyss leaves were less valuable than a single dragon abyss fruit, The total value of 100 Dragon Abyss leaves greatly surpassed the value of a single Dragon Abyss fruit. Furthermore, they were extremely rare. At that instant, the third prince and the others collected their thoughts. The sight before them told them that what had just happened was not a dream. Third prince, catch! Qin Nan waved his hand and threw the 97 Dragon Abyss fruits into the third prince's hand. The final result of the trial at the Dragon Abyss mystical ground would depend on the number of Dragon Abyss fruit. Therefore, these Dragon Abyss fruits were given to the third prince first. 997. The third prince's palm trembled and golden light spurted out, catching all the Dragon Abyss fruits. It was rare for him to lose his composure. Together with the other 2 fruits, he now had 99 Dragon Abyss fruits, while Song Li only had 1 Dragon Abyss fruit. This result was already 99 times that of the second prince. In other words, if he were to achieve a great victory in the trial of the Dragon Abyss mystical ground, he would be appointed as the Crown Prince in terms of his achievements. Once he was crowned as the Crown Prince, he would eventually become the sky-scorching Emperor. At this moment, in the throne room of the Imperial Palace in White Tiger City, the officials present were still a little stunned when they saw the 97 Dragon Abyss fruits in the third prince's hands. None of them had expected that the second prince would be overturned by Duan Qing the moment he showed his prowess. Now, the outcome had been decided. Amazing! This Duan Qing is really amazing. The third prince is extremely lucky to have Duan Qing's help. I didn't expect it to end like this. The officials collected their thoughts and exclaimed. Although the officials were divided into different factions, the conflict between them was now over. When the third prince acquired the 97 Dragon Abyss fruits, it was clear that he would be the future crown prince. While the officials were immersed in their thoughts, they subconsciously glanced toward Di Fengyun. Wasn't Di Fengyun's purpose of summoning the officials by beating the emperor drum so that they could witness the victory of the second prince? This caused the officials to be curious about Di Fengyun's current state of mind. Di Fengyun was aware of the gazes of the crowd, causing his expression to change instantly, turning dark. He did not expect to lose the duel at the Dragon Abyss Tree despite all the preparations he had made. Furthermore, he had lost to Duan Qing. Platoon Leader D, thank you for beating the Emperor Drum and summoning everyone here, allowing them to witness such an exciting duel. At that instant, Elder Wang calmly said. He was in a great mood after learning that Duan Qing had turned the tables around, thus he had no choice but to mock Di Fengyun. Elder Wang. Di Fengyun's eyes flickered with a murderous intent before he took a deep breath and uttered a hollow laugh. Everyone, the trial of the Dragon Abyss mystical ground isn't over yet. As soon as this was said, all the ministers were stunned, including Elder Wang. The third prince had acquired 97 Dragon Abyss fruit. Together with the previous one, he had acquired 98 Dragon Abyss fruits in total. Now that the duel had come to an end, the trial of the Dragon Abyss mystical ground had come to an end. Why would Di Fengyun say that all of a sudden? While they were puzzled, their gazes subconsciously shifted to the water screen. With a single glance, they instantly understood what was going on. Meanwhile, at the peak of the Heartbroken Mountain in the Dragon Abyss mystical ground. Duan Qing, it's all thanks to your help that I'm able to win the duel. If I'm able to achieve great things in the future, I won't let you down. The third prince collected his thoughts and spoke with a solemn expression. He knew that it was all thanks to Qin Nan's help that he was able to achieve what he had today. Why are you being so courteous with me? He had long treated the third prince as a friend. Between friends, it was natural for them to help each other. There was no need to waste time talking to each other. The third prince was startled, and then he laughed loudly. Everything was understood without words. Royal guards. I'm the third prince. Although the trial of the Dragon Abyss mystical ground has only been open for a day, I've already acquired 98 Dragon Abyss fruit. I've won the trial. Please open the door of the dragon abyss mystical ground at once and end the trial. The third prince picked up the golden badge and uttered a roar, transmitting his voice to the royal guards. According to the rules of the dragon abyss mystical ground, whoever had acquired the most dragon abyss fruits would be considered the winner. Now that the third prince had won the duel, there was no need for him to stay in the dragon abyss mystical ground any longer. Third prince, according to the rules, we'll end the trial in advance. In an hour's time, the mystical ground will be fully opened, and the trial will come to an end. At that instant, a roar could be heard coming from the sky and landing below. The third prince raised his head slightly. Ending the trial in advance was an exception. Therefore, the royal guards would only end the trial in advance after confirming that he had won the trial. Duan Qing. Third brother. Do you really think this is the end? You're too naive. Now, everything has just begun. A furious roar could be heard, which turned out to be the second prince, Song Li. Attack! Song Li uttered a roar as a terrifying aura burst out from his figure and Yao Ji's figure. They were planning to rob the dragon abyss fruits in the remaining 2 hours before the end of the trial. TSK naive? Do you really think you can defeat us with just the two of you? Let me tell you, I've always been annoyed by you. Let's see how I'm going to teach you a lesson. Longhu let out a hideous laugh as a ferocious aura was emitted from his body. A battle was about to take place. Stop it! An imperious roar could be heard, which turned out to be the dragon abyss tree. Chapter 579. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? Here's a fascinating novel for you to read. C_T. Chapter 581 Martial Spirit Resonance. The Arrival of the White Tiger. Fighting is forbidden on the Heartbroken Cliff. The dragon abyss tree snapped. If anyone dares to do so, don't blame me for showing no mercy. Just a few dozen words seemed to possess the power of an ancient demon, causing the surrounding space to tremble and ripple. Read the full article. At that instant, the towering tree unleashed the suppression of the half-martial sacred realm. Each of its branches seemed to possess the power to penetrate the ancient times. Whether it was the third prince or the second prince, they were all shocked to the point that their brains were buzzing. Senior. Qin Nan was not affected at all. He took a step forward and was about to speak. The map that the second prince had was extremely important, as it was related to the safety of Tang Qingshan and the others. He had to get his hands on it. Duan Qing, right? The dragon abyss tree glanced at Qin Nan with a friendly look as it no longer emitted its suppression. It's been a while since I've seen such an outstanding junior like you, able to remain unmoved under my suppression and eliminate the celestial devouring insects in the blink of an eye. I'll get straight to the point. I'm now at the crucial moment of ranking up to the martial sacred realm. Are you willing to give me some of the aura in your body? After saying this, the dragon abyss tree added, Of course, the primary force is extremely precious, so I won't take it for free. Once I rank up, I'll surely give you some benefits. Qin Nan was startled. He did not expect the dragon abyss tree to be interested in the chaos chi in his body. As for the third prince and his crew, they were stunned too. They had initially been at a standstill with the second prince's crew, but the dragon abyss tree had suddenly interfered. How had the atmosphere changed completely? Senior, I don't mind giving you the chaos chi, but I do hope that you won't interfere with the battle. There's something that the second prince has that I must get my hands on. In the blink of an eye, Qin Nan made up his mind. Full-text reading the dragon abyss tree possessed a great status in the entire sky-scorching ancient kingdom, and was a half-martial sacred realm presence. If he was able to give it some chaos chi to help it rank up to the martial sacred realm, it would not be a big deal. The dragon abyss tree was initially overjoyed when it heard that Qin Nan was willing to give it away, but it was troubled after hearing Qin Nan's request. Because fighting was not allowed on Heartbreak Mountain, It was a rule he set. It involved principles. Could it be that it wanted to break this principle? However, at that moment, a burst of loud laughter was suddenly heard. Ha 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 ha! The laughter was ear-piercing and full of sarcasm. Everyone present, including the dragon abyss tree, was subconsciously drawn over. The one who laughed was the second prince. He took a step forward as his eyes were filled with disdain. How nice of a dragon abyss tree! What a good cooperation! All of you are very good. The dragon abyss tree couldn't fight on Heartbroken Mountain, right? I'm going to make a move today. I want to see what you can do to me. After hearing this, Qin Nan, the third prince, and the others were stunned. The second prince dared to challenge the dragon abyss tree in public? Was he out of his mind? Such a disdainful junior. The eyes of the dragon abyss tree were engulfed in flames of anger. Following this, its enormous figure expanded, shrouding the sky and the sun, stirring the wind and clouds, resulting in a magnificent aura. I'll teach you a lesson on behalf of your father. Whoosh! A tree branch, with the force of a thunderbolt, crossed the air and flew over. Even though it was only a branch, the force it contained and the secrets it contained were not something a mere undefeatable martial dominator realm cultivator could withstand. The second prince could only wait to be beaten up by the branch. There was no way he could resist. Yao Ji, do it. Summon Master White Tiger. The second prince's expression changed tremendously as he uttered a roar at the crucial moment. Martial spirit resonance, sacrifice yourself. At that instant, Yao Ji, who was ignored by the crowd, suddenly uttered a roar. 7 golden rays were emitted from his back as the double-winged blood-eyed tiger floated in the air. Whoosh! Following this, countless black glows were emitted from the double-winged blood-eyed tiger, which spread into the surroundings. In the blink of an eye, a black altar was formed, and the double-winged blood-eyed tiger was the eye of the altar. Profound secrets. Descend of the white tiger. Yao Ji opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of essence blood, which landed on the double-winged blood-eyed tiger. Instantly, the altar of black light emitted a boundless glow, as a mystical and majestic energy was injected into the void, as if it had opened up a mysterious path to the outside world. This is, the dragon abyss tree's movement stiffened as its eyes glanced toward the blue sky. Sacrifice of the martial spirit resonance. Jiang Bailan's eyes stared at the scene, before her expression changed tremendously as a sudden thought crossed her mind. Crap! Yao Ji's martial spirit is the double-winged blood-eyed tiger. He is using the martial spirit resonance technique, using his martial spirit as the altar to open a path, summoning the experts of the White Tiger tribe. Jiang Bailan let out a stern shout. Qin Nan and the others were startled. Using his martial spirit as the altar to open a path to summon the experts of the White Tiger tribe? Was Yao Ji trying to summon the experts of the White Tiger tribe? In the midst of the lightning, thumping noises suddenly resounded from the sky. It was as if a giant was walking through the air toward them. Bang! The sky was shattered into pieces, revealing endless darkness. A giant figure slowly appeared from the darkness. Roar! A deafening roar could be heard coming from the sky. The entire lake within a radius of a few thousand miles suddenly shook violently, causing waves to rise. The surrounding void also exploded because of the roar. A single roar had caused the heavens and earth to change color. At that instant, the expressions of Qin Nan and the others, and the dragon abyss tree changed tremendously. Meanwhile, in the Emperor's audience hall of the White Tiger City, the crowd shook their heads when they saw the dragon abyss tree interfering with the second prince's plan to negotiate with Duan Qing. The dragon abyss tree was a half-martial sacred realm cultivator. The second prince and his crew had no right to speak before it. Even if the second prince had prepared some trump cards to fight against Duan Qing's crew, he would not stand a chance. In the end, the second prince had lost the duel. However, to everyone's surprise, the second prince had challenged the dragon abyss tree, and Yao Ji, who had remained silent all this while, had unleashed a powerful mysterious technique. When all the ministers saw the powerful figure stepping out of the crack in the void, their expressions changed drastically. The figure turned out to be the Sky-Howl White Tiger. Yao Ji had summoned the Sky-Howl White Tiger with a mysterious technique through his double-winged blood-eyed tiger. Who was the Sky-Howl White Tiger? One of the top 3 experts of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom. It had already existed when the sky-scorching ancient kingdom was first established. It had even helped the first emperor, defeating countless enemies together with the blood-winged vermilion bird and the kingdom protector black tortoise to establish the sky-scorching ancient kingdom. In other words, it was one of the founding experts of the kingdom. Not only did it possess a formidable strength, it also possessed an irreplaceable status in the sky-scorching ancient kingdom. Even the sky-scorching emperor had to treat it with respect. However, on this particular day, the Sky-Howl White Tiger had personally entered the Dragon Abyss mystical ground. Chapter 580. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 582, Battling the Tiger in the Dragon Abyss. A great crisis. The entire Emperor's audience hall fell into a dead silence at that instant. Advertisement. Access. Defonian burst out laughing as if he had no idea how serious the Sky-Howl White Tiger's arrival was. Everyone, you're right, this is Master Sky-Howl White Tiger. However, this was not its true body, but only one of its clones. Yao Ji happens to possess the Tiger tribe's martial spirit. Through the resonance of his martial spirits, he was able to construct an altar with the Sky-Howl White Tiger's clone and arrive at the Dragon Abyss mystical ground. Hearing this, the ministers collected their thoughts, but the astonishment in their eyes had yet to fade. Even if it was only a clone, it was still terrifying enough. Most importantly, this was only a duel between the princes. Why would they use such a secret technique to summon the Sky-Howl White Tiger's clone? Was it to help the second prince compete for the crown prince's position? That would be insane. Defengyun's eyes flickered coldly. Helping the second prince to become the crown prince was only one of his reasons. Most importantly, he was planning to kill Duan Qing and destroy Zhou Bihua's successor. Meanwhile, at the Heartbroken Mountain in the Dragon Abyss mystical ground, a giant white tiger stepped out from the rift. Its eyes were the size of a water tank. They were blood-red and filled with a ferocious aura. Its fur was as white as snow. A few golden runes on its forehead intertwined to form the character Wang. Just by standing there, it was emitting a tremendous suppression. That's the Sky-Howl White Tiger. No, that's its clone. Jiang Bailan's face was filled with astonishment, as she did not expect this to happen either. The faces of Qin Nan, the third prince, and the others were filled with astonishment. The Sky-Howl White Tiger. It was a legendary existence. Why would Yao Ji summon its clone when he executed the secret technique? Everyone knew that its clone's cultivation was equivalent to the half-martial sacred realm. In other words, it was even stronger than the half-martial sacred realm. Could it be that its clone had descended to help the second prince fight for the position of crown prince? Lord Sky-Howl White Tiger, why did you send a clone here? The Dragon Abyss tree soon recovered from its astonishment. As the guardian of the Dragon Abyss mystical ground, it possessed a great status in the sky-scorching ancient kingdom, thus it was familiar with the Sky-Howl White Tiger. However, due to the mysterious location of the Dragon Abyss mystical ground, even an expert like the Sky-Howl White Tiger would not be able to discover it. Therefore, it had no contact with the Sky-Howl White Tiger, the blood-winged vermilion bird, and the others, as it only obeyed the orders of the sky-scorching emperor. After asking the question, the dragon abyss tree quickly came to a realization, causing it to yell, "Senior Skyhowl White Tiger, even with your outstanding cultivation, you shouldn't break the rules. The trial of the dragon abyss mystical ground is a battle between the princes. You are not allowed to interfere." "Is that so?" The Skyhowl White Tiger in the sky opened its mouth, revealing its sinister fangs. All the beasts in the lake began to cry out in fear under the pressure of its aura. Suddenly, the Skyhowl White Tiger made its move. It raised its giant claw and slapped downward, firing a terrifying beam of light toward the peak of the heartbroken cliff. Love go little say, W. Chewit's sudden attack took everyone by surprise. "Senior White Tiger, you've broken the rules." The dragon abyss tree uttered a roar as its branches sprang into the sky and intertwined into a giant purple barrier that emitted a mystical glow, blocking the attack. The barrier was instantly shattered into pieces by the terrifying attack. Whoosh! The Skyhowl White Tiger's figure landed a few hundred meters away from the peak of the heartbroken mountain. Its crimson eyes suddenly locked onto Qin Nan's figure. White Tiger attack! The Skyhowl White Tiger opened its bloody mouth and spat out a white glow. The white glow was only the size of a fist, but it contained a tremendous murderous aura, which descended from the sky like a meteorite crashing into the ground. "White Tiger, you've gone too far." The dragon abyss tree was infuriated. It did not expect someone of its status to come here in person just to eliminate a mere junior. It then unleashed its sacred force, causing countless leaves to fly forward, resulting in a ferocious gust of wind that shattered the white glow before it arrived. When the two half-step martial sacred realm experts clashed, the strength of their cultivation had reached an unimaginable and terrifying level. Meanwhile, as soon as the dragon abyss tree shattered the white glow, the Skyhowl White Tiger let out a hideous grin as its eyes fired two crimson glows in the direction of the dragon abyss tree. The dragon abyss tree was astounded. It immediately extended its branches to intercept the crimson glows, but it only managed to shatter one of them before the rest of its branches were shattered into pieces. The other crimson glow descended upon Qin Nan as if it had entered a deserted area. Crap! The dragon abyss tree's expression changed tremendously. It had underestimated the power of the crimson glow. However, it was too late to make its move now. The crimson glow was too fast. Even it could only watch helplessly as it fell. Duan Qing, the third prince, Longhu, Jiang Bailan, and the others were dumbfounded. The Skyhowl White Tiger was specifically targeting Duan Qing. It was trying to kill him. However, their strength was too weak. Under the crimson glow, they were like a tiny boat in a raging ocean, which could be blown away at any second, let alone saving Qin Nan. It was too fast. It was too fast. In less than a breath's time, the crimson glow descended upon Qin Nan's head like a terrifying calamity. Bang! At that instant, Qin Nan's soul began to vibrate vigorously. It felt like the world before him was about to collapse, while he was like a tiny ant, which would surely be shattered into pieces by the attack. Meanwhile, in the Emperor's audience hall of the White Tiger City, the crowd was dumbfounded after seeing the Skyhowl White Tiger's action. The Skyhowl White Tiger was trying to kill Duan Qing. However, when they saw the crimson glow being emitted by the Skyhowl White Tiger penetrating the defense of the dragon abyss tree and landing on Duan Qing's head, they immediately collected their thoughts. All of this was an insidious scheme, a scheme set up by Di Fengyun to specifically target Duan Qing. Di Fengyun was ruthless enough to summon the clone of the Skyhowl White Tiger, leaving no chance for Duan Qing to escape. The crowd shook their heads after coming to a realization. At that instant, it didn't matter if it was a conspiracy or not, the outcome had already been decided. Duan Qing is going to die. Such a pity, this extraordinary kid is going to die so soon. He's going to die for sure. The ministers blurted out. Some wore gloating looks on their faces, Some wore pitiful looks, and some wore unpleasant looks. As for Elder Wang, when he saw this scene, it was as if he was struck by lightning. His face was so pale that it was devoid of blood. It all happened too quickly, so fast that he could not react in time. Duan Qing was going to die. Duan Qing was dead. The hope of the Vermilion Bird platoon was gone. Only Di Fengyun wore a smile on his face. The reason why he had summoned the ministers with the emperor drum was so that they could witness how Zhou Bihua's successor, Duan Qing, was killed by the White Tiger platoon. After killing Duan Qing, the Vermilion Bird platoon would have no hope left. As long as the Vermilion Bird platoon lost their hope, it was only a matter of time before he, Di Fengyun, would be able to devour the Vermilion Bird platoon and acquire the art of the immortal Vermilion Bird from Zhou Bihua. Chapter 581. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? Shua.net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 583. A Shocking Roar. Meanwhile, at the peak of the Heartbroken Mountain in the Dragon Abyss mystical ground. That was fast. Whoosh. In less than half a breath's time, the crimson glow was less than 10 meters away from Qin Nan's head. It was as if the entire time had frozen. Ha ha ha! The second prince subconsciously burst out laughing. So what if he had killed the immortal devouring beast? So what if his cultivation was outstanding? There was no way he was going to fight against him. He would still be the winner in the end. Bang! The crimson glow descended onto Qin Nan's head, as if it had accumulated a tremendous force, aiming to penetrate Qin Nan's body. In the moment of life and death, Qin Nan, whose hair was standing on end, suddenly collected his thoughts. I can't die here. Qin Nan uttered a roar and raised his left hand at the speed of lightning, as if he was raising a shield in front of him. His life or death depended on the left arm of the divine god of battle. Bang! A loud explosion took place at the peak of the Heartbroken Mountain. The crimson glow turned into a mushroom cloud with a circumference of 30 meters, which spread into the surroundings. The terrifying flames devoured everything. Qin Nan's figure was instantly sent flying, crashing into the rocks and falling into the lake. Duan Qing. The Dragon Abyss tree was astounded. At that instant, it could no longer sense the presence of Duan Qing's life force. In other words, Duan Qing was dead. Ha ha! The Skyhowl White Tiger burst out laughing seeing this. Dragon Abyss tree, since Duan Qing is dead, I won't be playing with you any longer. However, you dare to stop me from killing someone today. Next time, I will personally come and tear your tree trunk into pieces. Saying this, the Skyhowl White Tiger stomped its foot and tore the space apart, preparing to leave the place. Marshmallow, it had sent its clone here to kill Duan Qing. Since Duan Qing was dead, there was no need for it to stay any longer. White Tiger, don't even think about leaving. The Dragon Abyss tree collected its thoughts and became enraged. Countless branches sprang forward like peerless swords, blocking the Skyhowl White Tiger's path with brute force. You are courting death. The Skyhowl White Tiger became enraged. A mere half-martial Sacred Realm cultivator dared to stop it from leaving. At this moment, the two half-saint-level existences were engaged in an even more terrifying battle in the sky. Explosions occurred one after another, and countless layers of the void began to collapse. It was as if the entire sky was about to be torn apart. Duan Qing, the third prince, Jiang Bailan, and Long Hu stared at the giant pit not far away. Their eyes widened as their faces became extremely pale. Duan Qing was dead? Duan Qing was killed just like that? Duan Qing. Long Hu's face was filled with great pain as he let out a roar. Damn it! Damn it! Despicable Skyhowl White Tiger! Now that Duan Qing was dead, how was it going to answer to the princess? If the princess knew about this, it would be a huge blow to her. Ha! The second prince burst out laughing as an aura burst out from his body. His icy eyes emitted a boundless icy intent as he said, "Third brother, now that Duan Qing is dead, how are you going to stop me today?" As he spoke, he took out a medicinal pill and swallowed it. Bang! The second prince's cultivation skyrocketed. In just a few breaths' time, the force in his body had reached the third layer Martial Highness realm. The pill was known as the demonized soul-splitting pill, which was extremely precious. After consuming it, one's cultivation would improve tremendously for a short period of time. That being said, once the effect of the pill wore off, it would bring a great burden to the cultivator. Kill! The second prince uttered a roar as his figure charged in the direction of the third prince and his crew like a spear. "You're asking for it." At that instant, the eyes of the third prince, Longhu, and Jiang Bailan spat out flames of fury. Golden Emperor's door seal. Burning of life force. Longhu's body. The third prince uttered a roar as his body emitted a golden glow, causing his cultivation to skyrocket rapidly. Jiang Bailan immediately burned her lifespan to accumulate the death chi. Longhu uttered a roar as he transformed into a dragon head and a tiger body, unleashing his strongest strength. The second prince was startled, before he let out a hideous laugh. "Duan Qing is already dead. Do you really think the three of you can stand a chance against me? You've overestimated yourselves. I ceiling throne." The second prince waved his hand and spat out a boundless icy chi, which transformed into a giant throne that descended from the sky, crushing down onto the three cultivators. The surroundings were instantly sealed in ice. "Die with Duan Qing." One of Longhu's dragon heads opened its bloody mouth and spat out a blinding light. The third prince executed his monarch art, while Jiang Bailan let out a sigh as she transformed into the god of death. At that instant, the final battle between the princes had begun. Meanwhile, in the Emperor's audience hall of the White Tiger City. "Congratulations! Senior Di Fengyun, congratulations! Haha, congratulations, Senior Di Fengyun, for eliminating the enemy." When the ministers saw the red glow penetrating Qin Nan's body, they immediately turned around and congratulated Di Fengyun. They were not idiots. Thus they knew that the Vermilion Bird platoon would no longer have any geniuses after Duan Qing's death. Thus there was no hope left. In other words, the White Tiger platoon would become the dominant force, which would only grow stronger. "Everyone, this is so annoying." Di Fengyun could not hide the joy on his face after hearing the congratulations from the ministers. He turned his gaze toward Elder Wang and said in a pitiful tone, "Elder Wang, I'm sorry. I didn't expect Yao Ji to summon Senior Skyhowl White Tiger's clone to deal with Duan Qing." The crowd fell silent upon hearing this. The ministers turned their heads around and glanced at Elder Wang with a mocking look. The pale-faced Elder Wang received a great blow to his heart once again after hearing the words. His eyes turned blood-red. "Didn't expect it? You didn't expect it? All of this was clearly part of your plan. Di Fengyun, I'll kill you!" Elder Wang uttered a roar as a terrifying murderous intent burst out from his body. "Trying to kill me? I think you're courting death." Di Fengyun's lips curled upward. He had purposely provoked Elder Wang, so that Elder Wang would take the initiative to come to him, allowing him to kill Elder Wang in public. Killing Duan Qing was not enough. He was planning to slowly devour the entire Vermilion Bird platoon. The eyes of the ministers flickered seeing this. It seemed like Di Fengyun was determined to deal with the Vermilion Bird platoon. However, none of them had anything to do with it. Thus they had no intention of helping Elder Wang. However, at that instant a shocking yell could be heard all of a sudden. "Look! Something's happening! Something's happening?" The ministers, including Di Fengyun, were startled. Even the clone of the Skyhowl White Tiger had arrived. What could be happening? Filled with doubts, they subconsciously turned their heads around. following a glimpse, the figures of the crowd stiffened. Chapter 582. Genius 1 Second. Remember love divided by little? SegNet, providing you with interesting novels to read. C_T. Chapter 584. I am not dead. The entire Emperor's audience hall fell into a dead silence. Please read the full article. For more information, please visit www. Elder Wang's eyes reddened as if he had just witnessed something unbelievable, causing him to be stunned on the spot. In the water curtain, the Skyhowl White Tiger and the Dragon Abyss Tree were fighting in the sky, resulting in a shocking battle. At the peak of the mountain, the second prince had consumed a pill, causing his cultivation to skyrocket as he fought against 3 opponents at the same time. However, a figure suddenly appeared at the foot of the mountain. The figure was covered in blood and his aura was weak. He staggered, leaving behind bloody footprints as he slowly made his way from the foot of the mountain to the top. Even though his figure was extremely tiny now, he was no weaker than an atavistic giant in the eyes of the ministers. Duan Qing was still alive. He was still alive after receiving the attack from the clone of the Skyhowl White Tiger. The clone of the Skyhowl White Tiger possessed a cultivation of the half-martial sacred realm. Even though its attack was significantly weakened by the Dragon Abyss Tree, it could still easily kill a 7th layer or 8th layer martial highness realm cultivator. Duan Qing was only a peak martial dominator realm cultivator, but he was still alive? Gasp! One of the ministers suddenly opened his mouth and inhaled deeply, breaking the silence of the crowd. Love go little Saith Ko. Following this, the ministers collected their thoughts and blurted out in astonishment. He's still alive. Duan Qing is still alive. What's going on here? Such an attack. How did it fail to kill him? Did Zhou Bihua leave him some kind of trump card? Hearing the shouts, Elder Wang immediately collected his thoughts. He could finally confirm that it was not a dream, that Duan Qing had actually survived the ordeal. It did not matter how he had managed to survive. Most importantly, he was still alive. As long as he was still alive. Meanwhile, the smile on Defengyun's face froze as his face turned slightly pale. Cotton candy. How was this possible? How was it possible that he was still alive? Meanwhile, at the Heartbroken Mountain in the Dragon Abyss mystical ground. Kill! Long Hu uttered a roar into the sky. As the battle continued, the terrifying power of the heavenly dragon and thunderous tiger bloodline was fully displayed, as it managed to resist the second prince's attacks. The third prince and Jiang Bailan used forbidden arts, and their cultivations soared. It was unknown whether it was because of anger or something else, but the two of them displayed a battle prowess that was even more terrifying than usual. The second prince, Song Li, was actually retreating in defeat. Lord White Tiger. Please make your move. Kill them all. A hint of panic could be seen in the eyes of the second prince as he raised his head and uttered a roar. The Skyhowl White Tiger, who was battling against the Dragon Abyss Tree in midair, became enraged after hearing the words, "Useless prick! Duan Qing was dead. You can't even take care of the remaining 3. Saying this, the Skyhowl White Tiger fired 2 crimson rays from its eyes across the boundless space. White Tiger, you still want to kill? There's no way. The Dragon Abyss Tree uttered a furious roar as its branches shrouded the sky and blocked off the crimson rays. Dragon Abyss. The Skyhowl White Tiger uttered a roar. The development of the situation had exceeded its expectations. It initially thought that the Dragon Abyss Tree would not resist after seeing its true appearance. To its surprise, the Dragon Abyss Tree was daring enough to oppose it personally. Furthermore, even after consuming the pill, the second prince was still no match against the third prince and his crew. At this rate, the second prince would never be able to become the crown prince. Screw it. Duan Qing is dead anyway. It's only a matter of time before the Vermilion Bird platoon disintegrates. Even if the third prince becomes the crown prince, once I'm done with my plan, I'll be able to cripple the emperor too. The Skyhowl White Tiger soon adjusted its thoughts and wore a relaxed expression. The only thing it needed to do now was to leave this goddamn dragon abyss mystical ground. The second prince was stunned when he saw that the Skyhowl White Tiger was unable to make its move. Third prince, why are you still so stubborn? Duan Qing is dead. There's no hope for you. If you surrender now, I'll spare your lives. The second prince realized what was going on and yelled at the top of his lungs. He looked fierce on the outside but was actually a coward on the inside. He would be extremely depressed if he still failed to become the crown prince after using such a great effort to kill Duan Qing. How bold! Long Hu, the third prince, and Jiang Bailan became even more infuriated. Their attacks became even sharper. Damn it! It seems like we won't be able to defeat them. Forget it, it's fine if we can't defeat them. Now that Duan Qing is dead, the Vermilion Bird platoon has no hope. Once the White Tiger platoon grows stronger, they will be able to eliminate the Vermilion Bird platoon. When that happens, even if third brother becomes the crown prince, he will be able to cripple his title too. Seeing this, the second prince made up his mind after making up his mind. There was no need to waste his time with the third prince and his crew. It was more important to save his life first. With a kick, his figure dashed forward like a sharp sword, grabbing the unconscious Yao Ji and preparing to flee. Trying to escape? Jiang Bailan's eyes were incomparably cold. Ha ha ha, third brother, I won't compete with you for the crown prince position. I'll let you have it. However, let me give you a piece of advice. You better not chase after me, but focus on searching for Duan Qing's corpse. Otherwise, with so many beasts in the lake, they might even devour his corpse. The second prince burst out laughing. Jiang Bailan, Long Hu, and the third prince held their breaths. The second prince's words were like a heavy hammer that smashed into their chests. If they did not search for Duan Qing's corpse now, there would be nothing left. If he's alive, I want to see him. If he's dead, I want to see his corpse. Brother Duan Qing is already dead. We can't let his corpse be devoured by the beasts too. Let's go. We'll kill him once the trial is over. The third prince's eyes reddened as he uttered a roar. Long Hu and Jiang Bailan's hands began to tremble slightly. The second prince was overjoyed seeing this. He had guessed it right. These people were extremely stupid. They had let him go just to find Duan Qing's corpse. Therefore, it was hard to tell who would be the one killing whom next time. However, as the second prince's figure rose into the air, a hoarse voice could be heard all of a sudden. Second prince, I'm sorry to disappoint you. I'm not dead. As soon as these words were spoken, it was no less shocking than a thunderclap. At the peak of the cliff, a figure covered in blood could be seen panting heavily. His figure swayed slightly, as if he would fall at any second. The person was none other than Qin Nan. Chapter 583. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second Divided by Little? Shua.net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 585. Raising the butcher's knife. At that instant, it was as if time had frozen once again. The second prince, who had leaped into the air, froze in midair. The smile on his face seemed to have frozen, and his eyes were filled with great shock. In addition to him, the third prince, Long Hu, and Jiang Bailan shuddered violently when they heard the familiar voice. Duan Qing wasn't dead? They subconsciously turned their heads around, and their minds went blank when they saw the familiar figure. He wasn't dead. Duan Qing was not dead. He had survived the attack of the Skyhowl White Tiger's clone. In the sky above the dragon abyss mystical ground, The dragon abyss tree and the sky-howl white tiger, who were fighting each other, were startled when they suddenly sensed an aura. They subconsciously glanced downward. Following a glimpse, the two authorities were stunned. Why was that figure Duan Qing? He was still alive? The sky-howl white tiger, in particular, was one of the top 3 experts of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom, an ancient presence that had lived for thousands of years. It had experienced countless battles and met countless geniuses, but the sight before it gave it a ridiculous feeling. Although it was only a half-martial sacred realm cultivator, its attack was so powerful that it could easily kill 10 Duan Qing, let alone one. But now Duan Qing was still alive. Ha 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 ha! The dragon abyss tree burst out laughing in the midst of its astonishment. Sky-howl white tiger. You're willing to send your clone here to attack a mere junior. But I bet you didn't expect Duan Qing to survive. At that instant, the dragon abyss tree felt extremely pleasant. Duan Qing's survival was like a huge slap to the sky-howl white tiger's face. Die! The sky-howl white tiger collected its thoughts and wore a ferocious expression. It, the sky-howl white tiger, had failed to kill a mere peak martial dominator realm cultivator with its clone. It would be a great joke if the news were to spread. Still trying to kill him? There's no way. Duan Qing's return caused the aura of the dragon abyss tree to skyrocket. In the blink of an eye, countless branches spread across the heavens and earth and lashed at the sky-howl white tiger's figure like whips, forcing it to back off. At this moment, the crowd on the mountain peak also came back to their senses. Ha ha ha, I knew you wouldn't die. F***K, you scared me to death. Long Hu burst out laughing in surprise. Duan Qing, well done. The third prince's eyes reddened, as tears almost fell from them. A man does not easily shed tears, let alone someone of his status. However, when he saw Duan Qing standing in front of him alive, he was so touched that he could no longer control his emotions. It's really difficult to kill you. Jiang Bailan's delicate face was calm, as if Duan Qing's death had nothing to do with her. However, no one noticed that a crystal had quietly streaked across the sky and landed on the ground. You, the second prince pointed his finger at Qin Nan as his figure trembled. He could not even speak clearly. What about me? Second prince, how cunning. Teaming up with the White Tiger platoon and sending a clone of the sky-howl White Tiger here just to kill me. You've overestimated my capabilities. Qin Nan's weakened face was filled with anger. If it weren't for the left arm of the divine god of battle's outstanding defense at the crucial moment, he would most likely have been shattered into pieces by the blow. Even though the left arm of the divine god of battle had managed to resist the attack with brute force, the impact had severely damaged his organs and meridians. Who knew how much he would have to pay to recover from this kind of injury? How could he not be furious? Drop to your knees! Qin Nan snapped and unleashed the remaining force in his body. With a kick, he arrived above the second prince and stomped his foot onto the ground. A giant bell was summoned and encapsulated the second prince's figure within it. The bell was struck with a great force, causing a powerful impact to be unleashed. Puff! The second prince spat out a mouthful of blood as his figure received a great blow. Seeing this, the eyes of the third prince and the others were filled with astonishment once again. In addition to that, inside the emperor's audience hall of the White Tiger City, the ministers Di Fengyun and Elder Wang who were observing the battle with the rare artifacts were left in astonishment. Not only was he still alive after receiving the attack from the clone of the sky-howl White Tiger, he still possessed such outstanding strength. What kind of monster was this guy? Duan Qing, the second prince was shocked awake by the pain. His eyes were filled with cold, murderous intent as he said sternly, "There's a path to heaven, but you don't want to take it. There's no door to hell, but you come here yourself. I've consumed the demonized doppelganger pill. You are no match against me. Die." 7 golden rays were emitted from the second prince's back, as a giant glacier beast rose from the ground. The giant glacier beast uttered a furious roar as it spat out countless glaciers in the direction of the second prince. Duan Qing. The third prince and the others were startled as they took a step forward and prepared to interfere. Judging from Duan Qing's aura, he was severely injured. If he continued to resist the second prince, his injuries would worsen. Don't come any closer. Heavenly accumulating strike. Qin Nan yelled at the third prince and the others. His eyes were filled with tremendous battle intent as he opened his mouth and accumulated the will of the phoenix soul-consuming fire, the vermilion bird striking the heavens, and other intents, before firing them downward. Bang! A great explosion took place. The second prince's figure was severely injured by the terrifying explosion. The second prince's voice became weaker, and there was a hint of pain in his voice. At this moment, his eyes were finally filled with terror. As the second prince of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom, his life had always been smooth since he was young, as he had defeated countless enemies. However, he had failed the first time against Duan Qing, the second time, and the third time. It was as if this man had countless trump cards, granting him an endless amount of power. No matter what happened, he would never be defeated. Qin Nan's eyes turned cold. Without hesitation, he drew out the ancient saber Ira, which emitted a shocking saber intent that locked onto the second prince's head. If he did not kill the second prince today, he would never be able to calm his heart. That being said, the second prince was not the only one to be blamed for the incident. Di Fengyun and the Skyhowl White Tiger were also to blame. Although he might not be able to avenge them now, it was only a matter of time. If someone respected him, he would respect them tenfold. If someone were to point their weapon at him, he would not show any mercy. However, the third prince's expression changed tremendously when he saw this. Chapter 584. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second Divided by Little? Shua Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 586, Slaying the Second Prince. Chapter 586, Slaying the Second Prince. Meanwhile, in the Emperor's audience hall of the White Tiger City. Access. The crowd was immersed in an uproar after seeing Qin Nan's ferocious attack suppressing the second prince. Despite being severely injured, he still possessed such terrifying strength. However, little did they know that Qin Nan was already a law-defying martial dominator, whose primordial spirit had surpassed the heavens and earth. The force in his body was endless. Even if he was severely injured, his strength would not be depleted. However, when they saw Qin Nan swinging his saber, everyone was dumbfounded. What was he planning to do? Was he planning to slay the second prince? Even though the second prince and the White Tiger platoon had broken the rules by sending the clone of the Skyhowl White Tiger here. However, if the second prince were to die, the consequences would be different. That was the second prince, who was still the son of the sky-scorching emperor. Besides, the rules of the Dragon Abyss Mystical Ground clearly stated that killing was not allowed, let alone killing a prince. Once he was killed, the entire sky-scorching ancient kingdom would be in an uproar. Crap! The joy on Elder Wang's face disappeared, and his entire body tensed up. If Duan Qing were to slash the second prince, even the Vermilion Bird platoon would not be able to protect him. Meanwhile, at the peak of the Heartbroken Mountain in the Dragon Abyss Mystical Ground. Stop it! The third prince let out a roar. Duan Qing, you can't kill him. Once you kill him, the consequences will be unimaginable. Calm down. Long Hu and Jiang Bailan stood aside without saying anything. The Dragon Abyss Tree and the Skyhowl White Tiger were stunned. Was Duan Qing planning to kill the second prince? Isn't this too crazy? Ha ha ha! The sky-howl white tiger burst out laughing with a mocking tone. Duan Qing, if I were you, I would do it myself. Even though I don't know what you did, you almost died because of him. Can you bear such a great grudge? Are you still a man? Of course, if you're scared, just pretend that I didn't say anything. Duan Qing, don't listen to him. Calm down. It's not impossible for you to exact your revenge on the second prince in the future, but you must not kill him in the Dragon Abyss mystical ground. The Dragon Abyss tree blurted out in a panic. Duan Qing had barely survived the ordeal, and it did not want to see Duan Qing getting himself into trouble again. Yes, the Dragon Abyss tree was right. Don't do anything. You must endure. You must keep your head down. Do not be impulsive. You must take revenge in the future. It's not like you would dare to do it, since you're a coward anyway. The sky-howl white tiger's words were even sharper, which felt like a giant saber descending from the sky. Shut up. The Dragon Abyss tree became enraged and unleashed a tremendous attack. At this moment, on the mountain peak, Qin Nan raised his saber and looked at the second prince. His eyes were extremely cold. The second prince's heart skipped a beat as a deadly chill rose within his heart as he blurted out, Duan Qing, don't be impulsive. If you kill me, my father will never forgive you. Even the Vermilion Bird platoon won't be able to protect you. You better let me go. Let you go? The coldness in Qin Nan's eyes grew thicker. What gave the second prince the right to harm him? What gave them the right to summon the clone of the sky-howl white tiger to kill him? If it weren't for the left arm of the divine god of battle, he would be dead by now. Duan Qing, stop it at once. The third prince uttered a roar as his figure sprang into the air, which transformed into a pair of claws grabbing in Qin Nan's direction, trying to stop Qin Nan's movement. Don't you dare stop me. Qin Nan uttered a roar as he spat out a boundless flame from his mouth, knocking the third prince backward. At that instant, Qin Nan's gaze was filled with a firm determination. He was the owner of the divine battle spirit, capable of battling against the heavens and earth. There was nothing he did not fight against, and nothing he did not win against. There was nothing he was afraid of in his life, as he was willing to avenge his enemies. What was the point of him living in this world if he were to tolerate it? Besides, he had made a promise to the sacred Lord Blue Dragon. He would never lower his head in this life. Even if the tide was surging before him, if he was not convinced, he would raise the saber in his hand. If he was not convinced, he would fight. Only fresh blood could calm the flames of anger. Clank! The ancient saber Ira emitted a tremendous saber intent, emitting an icy aura. The second prince was astounded seeing this. Duan Qing? Are you King crazy? If you were to kill me, my father will never forgive you. The White Tiger platoon will never forgive you. No one will ever be annoyed by you. If you dare to do anything, the Vermilion Bird platoon will be buried with you. Bang! As the saber intent descended, the ancient saber slashed at the second prince's head without hesitation. Be it selfish, reckless, or crazy, if he didn't slay him today, he would never be satisfied. He would do what he had to do. Great! The sky-howl white tiger in the sky was startled. This Duan Qing was so daring to kill the second prince. If that was the case, Duan Qing would have no choice but to die, as no one would be able to protect him. Crap! The Dragon Abyss tree was astounded as it lashed out with its branches in an attempt to stop Qin Nan. But at that instant a rare occurrence took place. A force struck Qin Nan's shoulder. Although the force was not too strong, it was enough to knock the saber in Qin Nan's hand to the side, causing the saber intent to miss its target. The second prince was not dead. The person was none other than Jiang Bailan. Jiang Bailan. Qin Nan's eyes glistened as he snapped, "What do you think you're doing?" Jiang Bailan wore a calm expression, but all of a sudden, without any sign, her figure dashed forward and threw a punch in Qin Nan's direction. "Goddamned bitch! I knew she was up to no good." Long Hu was infuriated. This Jiang Bailan was indeed vicious, to ambush Qin Nan at such a time. Qin Nan's eyes widened. His left eye of the divine god of battle emitted a glow as he observed the attack and lashed out with his saber. Whoosh! With a flicker, Jiang Bailan's figure dodged the slash at an unbelievable speed, before her figure landed on top of the second prince's head. Her hair danced in the wind, resulting in a beautiful sight. "Cultivator Jiang, well done." The third prince was overjoyed. Either way, he would not allow Qin Nan to kill the second prince. The dragon abyss tree in the sky let out a sigh of relief. Luckily, nothing serious had happened. As for the skyhowl white tiger, its expression instantly became dark. Who exactly was this guy? To stop Qin Nan from killing the second prince, he deserved to die. "Are you trying to save him?" Qin Nan yelled sternly. "No." To everyone's surprise, Jiang Bailan said as she raised her arm. A tremendous aura of death was emitted from her fingertips, which formed a giant saber. Bang! Without any warning, Jiang Bailan swung her arm and slashed at the second prince's head, causing blood to splatter everywhere. "I'll be the one to kill him." At that instant, a shocking scene took place. Chapter 585. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second/Small? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 587. I am Qin Nan. At this moment, in the throne room of the Imperial Palace in White Tiger City. Love Go Little Say, Netku the updates were so fast. When the officials saw the saber in Qin Nan's hand emitting a shocking saber chi, they completely lost their composure. Duan Qing is crazy. What a lunatic. He really wants to kill the second prince. We're done for. Elder Wang's heart skipped a beat, as if it was stuck in his throat. Don't do that. Please don't do that. Duan Qing, you must swallow this insult. Only Di Fengyun's eyes widened as his breathing intensified. Although the plan had failed completely, if Duan Qing were to slay the second prince, the outcome would still be the same. Duan Qing would not be able to escape death. However, right at this moment, Jiang Bailan suddenly made her move. She interrupted Duan Qing and killed the second prince with a wave of her hand. The scene took place too quickly. Before the crowd could react, the second prince's head was completely chopped off, causing blood to splatter everywhere. Everyone was stunned. Who was this woman? Why did she rush up and behead the second prince? Damn it! Di Fengyun's expression changed drastically, and he cursed loudly. He was so angry that his whole body was shaking. That damned woman had interrupted Duan Qing and killed the second prince. Wasn't this ruining their plans? The entire throne room fell into a dead silence. The reason for that was because this scene was simply too unexpected. After a while, one of the ministers suddenly reacted. The second prince has been killed. Quickly open the Dragon Abyss Mystery Realm. Capture the thief. The other ministers immediately reacted after hearing this. Now was not the time to be stunned. The death of the second prince was a serious matter. In an instant, the entire throne room was in chaos. Please go here to read a book. The emperor drum, which had just sounded again. Dong, dong, resounded through the air. The news of the second prince's death swept the entire palace like a ferocious storm. Everyone, including the soldiers and the sky-scorching emperor, was startled. The entire palace was in an uproar. At the same time, on Heartbroken Island in the Dragon Abyss Mystic Realm, Qin Nan, the third prince, Longhu, the Dragon Abyss Tree, and the Skyhowl White Tiger were stunned after seeing the second prince being killed. Especially the third prince and the Dragon Abyss Tree. This guy wasn't stopping Duan Qing, but asking him to kill the second prince instead? Killing this one isn't enough. This guy deserves to die too. Jiang Bailan wore a calm expression as she waved her hand, causing the death chi to form a giant sword, slashing the head of Yao Ji, who was still unconscious in the distance. The second prince and Yao Ji were both dead. The entire dragon abyss mystical ground fell into a dead silence at that instant. Why was that? Qin Nan opened his mouth wide, but no words came out. He did not expect Jiang Bailan to kill both the second prince and Yao Ji all of a sudden. Everyone knew that the second prince and Yao Ji did not hold a grudge against Jiang Bailan. Why would Jiang Bailan do that? At that instant, a rare occurrence took place. Bang! A loud explosion took place in the sky of the dragon abyss mystical ground. In an instant, the space that spanned dozens of miles shattered, and the face of the mystic realm palace was revealed from within the shattered space. At that instant, the dragon abyss mystical ground was fully opened. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A series of whooshing sounds could be heard, which sounded like a series of claps of thunder, exploding in the sky. The royal guards, Di Fengyun, Elder Wang, the Minister of Rights, the Minister of War, the Minister of Justice, the Prime Minister, the guards, etc., arrived at the place. In just less than a breath's time, over 100 people had arrived, each with a cultivation of at least the 8th layer Martial Highness realm. Even the clone of the Skyhowl White Tiger and the Dragon Abyss Tree were minuscule compared to the formation. These people were the authorities of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom. Each of them had left a brilliant history in the sky-scorching ancient kingdom, resulting in a glorious period of time. In other words, apart from the sky-scorching emperor and Zhou Bihua, every expert of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom had gathered here, as the second prince had been killed. Normally, the death of a prince would not cause such a huge commotion. However, in the Dragon Abyss mystical ground, the death of a prince was a blatant disrespect to the sky-scorching ancient kingdom, a blatant challenge to the rule of the kingdom. The expressions of the third prince and Longhu changed tremendously. They were like tiny ants in front of such a huge formation, not worth mentioning at all. This trip to the Dragon Abyss mystical ground was going to be a huge mess. Bang! At that instant, a powerful aura was emitted from Jiang Bailan's body. Although the aura was incomparable to the huge formation before her, it had a hint of suppression that surpassed the crowd's suppression. A mere prince is enough to cause such a huge commotion. The sky-scorching ancient kingdom is nothing special. Jiang Bailan's figure sprang into the air and glanced at the formation. Her hair danced wildly as she emitted an imperious aura, as if she were a martial monarch. How bold! How bold! She dares to be so scornful after killing a prince. Among the formation, the faces of the ministers were filled with anger. Following their anger, the space within a few hundred li began to vibrate vigorously, as if the entire mystical ground was going to shatter into pieces. The heavens and earth crumbled. A magnificent aura. It felt like the end of the world. Who are you? Tell me your name. How dare you kill my son? At that instant, an imperious voice could be heard coming from the rift. Although the person was nowhere to be seen, the mere sound of the voice alone was enough to make the crowd submit to it. The faces of the hundreds of ministers and bodyguards were filled with shock. The voice belonged to the sky-scorching emperor. Bang! A giant figure arrived from the rift. Although the figure was blurry, as soon as he arrived, it was as if everything in the surroundings had lost its color. The hundreds of ministers and guards seemed to have merged with his aura, forming a whole entity, an ancient dynasty. The emperor, also known as the Son of Heaven, represented the heavenly Tao. Name. However, Jiang Bailan's aura did not weaken despite facing the formidable aura. Instead, it seemed like she was going to compete with the emperor. She was not in a rush to answer. Instead, she turned around and glanced at Qin Nan with a grin. Bang! The aura emitted from Jiang Bailan's body was emitted once again, which felt like a sharp sword pointing at the heavens. Her figure and her attractive face were engulfed in flames, which soon dissipated. Her figure was replaced by a young man wearing a blue robe, with black hair and 7 ancient sabers on his back. "I'm Qin Nan." Chapter 586. Genius 1 second. Remember love divided by little? Here's a great novel for you to read. C_T. Chapter 588. The Eastern Continent is boiling. Qin Nan. Everyone in the upper district's Eastern Continent knew who he was. Love Go Little Say, Chu. The 4 great factions had teamed up to hunt him down, with a reward of 8 sacred weapons and a chance to become progenitor Wen Dao's disciple. This mysterious genius of the lower district had swept the entire upper district's Eastern Continent in just a month, causing countless experts to search for him. However, after he had appeared at the 9th city, he had disappeared from the Eastern Continent as if he had vanished into thin air. No one had been able to track him down. This person was the famous Qin Nan? Everyone, including the sky-scorching emperor, was stunned, as they had not expected Qin Nan to appear here and kill the second prince. At that instant, the initially tense atmosphere of the Dragon Abyss mystical ground fell into a dead silence. Only Qin Nan and Longhu stared with their eyes open wide. Qin Nan? What exactly was Jiang Bailan planning to do? To suddenly attack and kill the second prince and Yao Ji before Qin Nan, and now disguise herself as him with some kind of disguise. This, Longhu glanced at Qin Nan and was left speechless. What Jiang Bailan had done today was unbelievable. On second thought, was she trying to help Qin Nan? Qin Nan was dumbfounded too. Since he had achieved his goal at the Martial Serendipity Pavilion, Jiang Bailan had been targeting him many times, and each time she would not stop until he was dead. But why was she helping him now? After a long while, all the leaders and ministers in the sky woke up from their stupor. Qin Nan. It's really Qin Nan. I used my eye technique, but he didn't use any disguise. Gasp, why is this guy here? The ministers were astounded. No matter how hard they tried, they could not figure out the reason behind it. Please read this book. Cut the crap. The 4 great factions are here to hunt me down. I'm only giving you a warning by killing your second prince. The sky-scorching ancient kingdom better stop trying to hunt me down. Otherwise, don't blame me for being merciless. Jiang Bailan emitted a ferocious aura, as if she had really transformed into Qin Nan. Capture him alive. The sky-scorching emperor let out a roar. His voice echoed in all directions. The ministers behind him immediately collected their thoughts. Terrifying auras burst out from their bodies, causing the heavens and earth to tremble vigorously. It was as if incomparably bright stars were shining in the endless darkness. Bang! At that instant, over 10 figures landed at the same time. Each of them possessed a cultivation of the 8th layer Martial Highness realm or above. Each of their attacks emitted a boundless force of the Martial Highness realm, resulting in a terrifying sight. Burning my lifespan, heaven reversing escape. Jiang Bailan uttered a roar as she clasped her hands together to perform a hand seal. Following the burning of her lifespan, a giant illusionary figure appeared from her figure, which grabbed her figure and tore the space apart, before fleeing into the distance. Crap! He's trying to escape. The ministers were shocked and enraged. This Qin Nan was only a peak martial dominator realm cultivator, but he was able to execute such a terrifying escape technique, preventing them from chasing after him. Sky-scorching palm. The sky-scorching emperor uttered a roar as his magnificent figure sprang forward, causing the sun and moon to lose their brilliance. He reached out his hand, which shrouded the heavens and earth, bringing endless darkness as he grabbed at the rift, trying to grab hold of Jiang Bailan's figure. 100 years of lifespan continued to burn. In midair, Jiang Bailan spat out a mouthful of blood as she burned her lifespan, causing the illusionary figure to expand rapidly, increasing its speed by 10 times, allowing her to escape from the sky-scorching emperor's pursuit. The surrounding ministers were astounded. How impressive of this Qin Nan! He was able to escape from the attack of the sky-scorching emperor's clone. No wonder he was being hunted by the 4 great factions. He won't be able to run far. Spread my words, the royal guards, the ministers, the white tiger platoon, the vermilion bird platoon, and the black tortoise platoon, move out at once. Pursue the sky-scorching ancient kingdom within 10,000 li. Capture Qin Nan alive at all costs. The sky-scorching emperor decisively gave out the order and tore the space apart to chase after Qin Nan. Chase after him. The ministers immediately made their moves without hesitation. Even the clone of the Skyhowl White Tiger and Di Fengyun had no choice but to chase after Qin Nan. The reason being that Qin Nan was too important. If they were able to capture Qin Nan, the benefits would be unimaginable. On this particular day, the entire White Tiger City was astounded. Countless cultivators saw the authorities arriving on the streets of White Tiger City and tore the space apart to search for Qin Nan, as if they were chasing after a peerless criminal. Following this, through the trading alliance, the news of Qin Nan's arrival at the sky-scorching ancient kingdom was spread to the Dao-seeking mountain and the Wanxiang pavilion as if it had grown wings. In the Dao-seeking mountain, progenitor Wendao, the Wendao elders, and the rest of the authorities were dumbfounded. Progenitor Wendao immediately ordered all martial sacred realm experts above the martial highness realm to head to the sky-scorching ancient kingdom and conduct a thorough search. This time, there was no way they would let Qin Nan go. On this particular day, the entire eastern continent was immersed in an uproar. Gasp! Qin Nan has shown up at White Tiger City and killed the second prince of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom. Did you hear? The martial sacred realm experts of the 4 great factions have all arrived at White Tiger City. Damn, that's crazy. A mere peak martial dominator realm cultivator is being hunted by the experts of the eastern continent. Come, let's head to White Tiger City too. We'll be rich if we can catch Qin Nan. A great chaos took place in the eastern continent of the Upper District. Countless experts began to make their way to White Tiger City. The name Qin Nan once again echoed in the hearts of countless people. However, little did they know that the Qin Nan they were chasing after was actually a fake Qin Nan that Jiang Bailan had disguised with some mysterious technique. The real Qin Nan was still at the Dragon Abyss mystical ground. Who would have thought such a thing would happen in the trial of the Dragon Abyss mystical ground? I just sense that the entire White Tiger City is in a complete mess. The Dragon Abyss tree exclaimed. Yeah, this Qin Nan is no ordinary person. I wonder why the 4 great factions are so eager to get their hands on him. The third prince said. However, he had to thank Qin Nan. If it weren't for Qin Nan, Duan Qing would most likely be in great trouble. Let's go. Qin Nan pondered for a moment, but could not figure out Jiang Bailan's intention. He shook his head and said, Senior, this is the Chaos Qi. Before leaving, Qin Nan fired 100 streams of Chaos Qi into the body of the Dragon Abyss tree without hesitation. The trunk of the Dragon Abyss tree shuddered violently, before it blurted out in joy, Haha, Duan Qing, I didn't expect you to have so much primary force. When I rank up to the martial sacred realm, I'll owe you a favor. Senior, you're being too serious. Qin Nan brought his fists together. Let's go. The third prince rose from the ground. It was meaningless to stay at the Dragon Abyss mystical ground any longer. Following this, the trio flew out of the Dragon Abyss mystical ground and returned to the mystical ground hall. However, there were only a few guards waiting for them outside the mystical ground hall. The reason being that all the experts of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom were on their way to hunt down Qin Nan. This time, the Dragon Abyss mystical ground was overshadowed by the appearance of Qin Nan, especially after he managed to survive the attack of the clone of the Skyhowl White Tiger and spread the news. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.